inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final
Hello, 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 cultists. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show I stream Monday through Friday on YouTube, on X, on Rumble, and now on Kick, too. It's like my third day on Kick, and I'm already about to meet my hourly goal to getting monetized. So now I just need to meet the follower goal, too. So we talk about really whatever I want to talk about, whatever's going on in the world, mostly with a focus on the far left, the radical revolutionary far left, the all the crazy people who I believe control all of our institutions and are taking over our world. Occasionally we dabble in other things as well. And today I feel like we have a perfect combination of things. We have a perfect combination between the far left, who is of course our first true love on this channel, and the far right. And yes, Bot, I am wearing the Aries shirt you sent me. I am. I love these shirts. Bot sent me 2 Aries shirts. She used to have this great store on Etsy, and then she took the whole thing down. And I don't understand why, because it was a great store. Bot had a lot of cool stuff in that store. Anyway, I'll complain about that another day. But yes, we are possibly, in all likelihood, we are indeed diving into the land of retardia today. That's not what I wanted to show you. I didn't want to show you my Kick thing. Oh shit, totally wrong thing. You know why? I clicked on the wrong window. Not that one. That one, the very next one. There we go. That's better. We are diving into the land of retardia today. We are diving into the land of retardia today because we are going to be watching a debate as much as we can possibly get through. We're going to be watching a debate between Andrew Wilson, who I think is a very stupid jackass, and Haas, who is a pretend Stalinist, but he says he's a MAGA communist, but really he's a Stalinist, which is just kind of weird because Haas is the executive chairman of this new communist party that Jackson Hinkle launched with the Midwestern Marx guys. And basically, and I don't even remember what is the name of the Jackson Hinkle Communist Party. It's not to be confused with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. That is a real socialist political party, not to be confused with the Revolutionary Communists of America. Those are Leninists and Trotskyists who hate Stalin. That's a real political party. But this Jackson Hinkle thing, hang on, let me just remind myself of what the name of this party actually is. There are so many communist parties running around now, And Jackson Hinkle's Communist Party is, if I'm honest about it, probably like the one that I'm worried about the least. Thank you guys, the American Communist Party. The American Communist Party, yes. So Hawes is the executive chairman of the American Communist Party, which just started. It was basically so you guys know, like, there's the Communist Party USA, which we very rarely talk about because honestly, the Communist Party USA isn't really that influential. The Communist Party USA is like the Libertarian Party in many respects. They just don't have their shit together. My Kamaj says, I moved over here from YouTube so you can get monetized. Hey, my Kamaj, thank you. It's good to see you over on Kick. I do appreciate it. Yeah, if you guys have accounts on Kick, if you wouldn't mind giving my channel a follow over there, I need to get 75 followers in order to get monetized. We'll talk about that in a sec, but, send in a chat because apparently that helps too. Why don't they all team up? Well, that's a great question, Human Centipede. They don't team up because, first of all, this American Communist Party is not a real thing. So back to my story. So Communist Party USA is a real thing. The Communist Party USA has been around for a long time. The Communist Party is really ineffective. And so, excuse me, the Communist Party USA is very ineffective. They're like the Libertarian Party. It's like there's all this bullshit going around, all this infighting, and essentially this past year, there was kind of a mass purge from the Communist Party USA, where the leadership of the Communist Party USA was like, we're going to vote for Joe Biden. This was before Kamala Harris replaced him. And the leadership of the Communist Party USA was like, we're going to vote for Joe Biden. And the membership in the Communist Party USA was like, what the what? We're not voting for Joe Biden. Joe Biden isn't a communist, because contrary to what conservatives say, socialists and communists are not actually the same thing as Democrats, and they actually hate Joe Biden, they hate Kamala Harris, all this stuff. So there was basically this incident where a metric ton of people got purged from the Communist Party USA, and Midwestern Marx covered this. We talked about it on a Socialism Saturday recently. And many of those purged members, including the Midwestern Marx guys, basically got together with Hawes, who pretends there's such a thing as MAGA communism, which doesn't really exist, and Jackson Hinkle, and they formed this American Communist Party. Hawes is a Stalinist. Why don't they work together? So take the Revolutionary Communists of America, for instance. The Revolutionary Communists of America is the political party that I had their two leaders on for Socialism Saturday to talk to them several months ago. They're the ones that have been making all these great commercials. They're the ones that have been they're the ones, the Revolutionary Communists of America were the ones at the DNC that Vivek Ramaswamy was interacting with. They're the ones with the communist newspaper. They're the ones with the red t-shirts. They're the ones with the Karl Marx sticker pointing at you saying, are you a communist? The Revolutionary Communists of America are Leninists. They hate Stalinists because they believe that Stalin essentially screwed everything up. Hawes is a Stalinist. So we have two different kind of points of view when it comes to what actually is communism. And by the way, the Revolutionary Communists of America don't actually think this American Communist Party is a real thing. So why aren't they working together? Because they think it's all a charade. I kind of agree with them, if I'm honest about it. I don't think that this is actually a serious thing. But Hawes fancies himself as a social media influencer. And Hawes likes to go on all these shows and pretend there's such a thing as MAGA communism. And Andrew Wilson is just a jackass that always has to be involved in everything. I have never liked Andrew Wilson. By the way, Andrew Wilson looks really, 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 really gay without his beard. He really shouldn't have shaved. That was a misstep. That was a really, Andrew Wilson at least used to have a look when it came to the beard. But now it's gone, and I don't even know what to say. I think he looks gay. And but Andrew Wilson is going to pretend to debate communism against a Stalinist. And this is all on Fresh and Fit. And you guys know how Myron Gaines is like my favorite person on the internet. I definitely don't think that Myron Gaines is gay and retarded. I would never say that. I would never ever get in Myron Gaines's face. I would never ever, because remember guys, I'm just a lowly woman. And Myron Gaines thinks that women should not be heard and women should not have opinions. And how dare a woman even speak up, even if that woman is offering exactly the same opinion as Nick Fuentes is. It's okay when Nick Fuentes offers that opinion, but if a woman offers that opinion, Myron Gaines is going to tell her to get her ass back in the kitchen. And so, I learned my lesson after I put him in his place rather expertly in that Twitter space. Myron Gaines is gay and retarded. Like, can we all disagree on that? One's in the chat if Myron Gaines is gay and retarded. Can we all just I feel like this is a bar that I feel like we all need to have. Hey, ADR Jacko over on Kick. I do appreciate you being over there. Thanks so much. So anyway, there was a debate about communism. Yep, I'm seeing a lot of ones in the chat. I'm seeing a lot of one. Yeah, well, Fluffy Cow Respecter, you say that, but then you keep showing up. Fluffy Cow Respecter's been showing up for every single stream lately. So how can you say that women shouldn't have opinions, bro? You're the one showing up to watch me on the internet. Are you being a spy or something? Are you being a spy for Mio and Brittany so you can report back to the group chat and let them know what I'm talking about? There's pictures of Myron kissing a guy. See, I'm not at all surprised by this. Because again, like, there's no Myron Gaines goes around Twitter saying, you gotta fuck 50 hoes before you get married, bro. And I'm like, bro, the only people who tell like men to fuck all these women are people who are hiding that they're gay. I'm sorry, that's just like, I feel like this is just common knowledge. Oh, you're being ironic. See, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. All right. So we're gonna watch this debate today, and it's a long ass debate. I doubt we're gonna get through all of it, but we're gonna see, and I think we're gonna see a lot of I think we're gonna descend into the land of retardia. But it's important that we do this because it is important that we understand how the ridiculous people of the internet perceive socialism and communism, and how the ridiculous people of the internet are like arguing against it, because these are the people that, for reasons beyond my understanding, the vast majority of the public watch, because the vast majority of the public, no offense, are stupid. If you're watching my channel, you're obviously not stupid. I'm probably not talking to you, but the vast majority of people are stupid, and they want stupid influencers, and stupid influencers say stupid things. And I feel like I need to put the stake in the ground that even though my channel will never be as influential as Fresh and Fit, and that's actually a good thing, I don't actually want to be that influential, even though I will never have their numbers, even though Myron Gaines, anytime he tells me to go in the kitchen and make him a sandwich, will be able to say that no one even cares about, you know what, all that stuff's true, but still, I'm going to put a stake in the ground, and I'm going to say we are going to create a bastion of discussion on the internet that is hinged into reality when it comes to communism and socialism and the far left, and that's going to be the way it goes. I don't think this is a nitwits. This debate already has 142,000 views. Hawes is the executive chairman of the American Communist Party, even though I don't think it's a real thing. That's still like he has over this is not an insignificant thing. So maybe I might be a little bit snarky like a nitwits. Maybe it is true that I don't think Hawes is actually a real revolutionary socialist, and I think Andrew Wilson is a moron. Like, maybe all that's true, but this is Human Centipede. This is what's going to frame people's reference in regards to communism. So we have to watch it. We just do. We have to watch it. Hey, Trauma Mama. Hey, Judy over on... See, we already got people watching over on Kick. Thank you, guys. I do appreciate it. First super chat of the day from Bob. I thought communism was, I share your wife with my wife. Also, we should all be equally poor and living in the gutter except for the elites. Well, I mean, that's the essence of how communism works out, but that doesn't mean that's necessarily what communism is. I am actually curious to see what Hawes has to say. Yeah, it's a cultwits. Exactly, it's cultwits. Exactly. Sin, the URL is literally pinned to the top of the chat. So I actually am interested to hear what they have to say. So we're going to watch this debate, and I'm going to do commentary on it, and you guys can add your thoughts too, and we're going to see what happens. A couple other orders of business before we get started, guys. Of course, always make sure you are signed up for my Substack, which is Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. This is where I do my breakdowns of the far left. Make sure you're visiting the re-education series. You can find the full re-education series by going to the Woke 101 section at the top. And then, when it loads, right up at the top, where'd it go? It used to be pinned at the top. What the hell happened? Well, I'll repin it, but there is a re-education introduction. And this is my new series where I'm starting from the beginning. I'm starting from the beginning in terms of breaking down the far left in bite-sized chunks because we had a lot of new people joining lately. And so if you guys want just like from the beginning, all the little things you need to know about the far left that I promise you no one has taught you. James Lindsay has not taught you these things. Dan Bongino has not taught you these things. The Daily Wire has not taught you these things. Conservative influencers have not taught you these things. This is everything that people who claim to understand the left fail to teach their people. I'm breaking it down one by one. You can get email notifications when that goes up on the Substack. Again, that's Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. And if you want to support the work I'm doing, I would welcome your support for $8 a month, $80 a year. That helps keep me in business. I'm 100% grassroots funded by you guys. And so I can't do this stuff without you. And so if you can sign up to support the work I'm doing, I would really appreciate it. We're going to be doing a big old membership drive over the next week. We got a big weekend coming up with the Socialism 2024 conference. We're going to be streaming a lot of their sessions live on this channel. And so we're going to be doing a lot of socialism content this week. Everyone better gear up. It's been a big weekend, okay? And so make sure you are signed up for the Substack. Help me out over there if you can. I would really appreciate it. Another way, of course, that you can help out the channel is by making sure you are following my Rumble channel. I have been premiering my new show, Something Controversial, in which we've been watching banned videos on the internet about Hitler and World War II and stuff like that. We're not always going to do Hitler and World War II, but I do have a whole thing of that I do need to get. But we're going to do we're basically going to do controversial conspiracy topics, stuff that I can't really watch on YouTube and do commentary on YouTube. So make sure you are following my Rumble channel, which is rumble.com/Carlin. We've had a couple episodes. We're really kind of enjoying it. It's a laid back vibe. You can also now follow me on Kick, which is kick.com/CarlinB, which I know I have different monikers at different places, but that's just the way it goes, right? And so if you want to follow me on there, I am trying to get up to 75 followers to be able to actually start monetizing the Kick account to see if anything comes of that. And if it does, it does. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And it's all good, man. Last thing I want to say before we get started is, of course, it is Tuesday. And that means that this is not my last stream of the day. This is but my first stream of the day. Tonight at 9 p.m., we will be doing my regular weekly show with Jennifer called Disenrage. Disenrage is basically a show where we talk about like spiritual things and more stuff like that. But we're kind of doing a little crossover into politics on this one because Jennifer and I are going to be listening to an afterlife interview with the Trump assassin. So one of the things we've been doing on Disenrage is there's these channels that they will actually use psychic mediums to channel dead people, essentially. And so they talk to like famous dead people and they get their perspective on their life and spirit and all that stuff. They ask them questions from beyond the grave. Tonight we are watching an episode about an afterlife interview with the Trump assassin. So I think it's going to be fascinating. I did a afterlife interview with Hitler a couple weeks ago on Disenrage when Jennifer was on vacation. I would love to find a medium that can help me do an afterlife, like a live afterlife interview with Hitler, like today. So if anyone knows a medium that wants to come and help me channel Hitler, I have so many questions. I would have questions for the Trump assassin too, but these usually tend to be really fascinating conversations. It looks at things from more of a spiritual perspective. So that's going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern time tonight. That's our regular weekly show. Come and join us. I know it's a little woo. Some of you are uncomfortable with woo, but you know, it's just the way it goes. Let me see. Bob says, is Kamala Harris a communist? Bob, I do not believe that Kamala Harris is a communist. I say that not because I like Kamala Harris, not because I support Kamala Harris, but because I think that Kamala Harris is more of an opportunist, that she kind of sometimes uses communist words. I do believe she was raised by a Marxist, but I think that Kamala Harris is more an opportunist grifter than anything else. She wants to be president. And so do I think that Kamala Harris, like the reality is this: the real communists, the real socialists in America, they do not like Kamala Harris. And so if you want to know if someone is a real communist and real socialist, ask real communists and real socialists. The Democrats are not real socialists. They're just not. And so the real communists, the real socialists were out protesting the DNC. The real communists and socialists don't actually like them. And so I would say no, I don't think that she is. Let's see. I did see a chat from Trendlin too that I want to answer. Hang on. Where is Trendlin? Yes, Trendlin, I did get that package. Yeah, Trendlin sent me a package of all sorts of random stuff. And I like Trendlin, I haven't even gotten the chance to like go through all of it yet. I opened my husband gave it to me earlier today. He's like, "You got a giant package." I was like, "Who's that from?" I was like, "I didn't order anything." And I was like, "Oh, it's from Trendlin. Oh, here we go." And so I opened it, and Trendlin sent me a bunch of yarn, and I definitely saw like some knickknacks, and there's a book about socialism. But I really want, I need to sit down and actually open the entire package and like look at all this stuff, Trendlin. But thank you for the package. I appreciate it. And I'm sure I'm gonna love everything that's in it. So thank you for that. All right. Let's get into it, guys. Let's get into it. We got a long ways to go. Please make sure you mount the like button if you're watching on YouTube. Mounting the like button lets YouTube know to recommend my content to more people. I would love to get those like numbers up. Come on, let's get like can we at least 10 more, maybe 15 more people to like the video before we get started. Come on, we can do better. Let's see those numbers go up. I believe in you guys. Come on, like the video. Keep going. This is very important, guys, because my channel is shadow banned on YouTube. The only way I have to get out of a shadow ban is when people just do the basics, like liking the video, sharing the video, commenting on the video, stuff like that. All right. Well, let's get this party started. Let's see what happened in the debate in the land of Retardia. Where did this actually start? All right, let's go.
Something that is foreign and not very prevalent in the Western countries, in the United States in particular, because here the self-identified communists are mainly just liberals who are becoming increasingly radicalized.
False.
In the direction of wherever the Democratic...
Hawes is already lying. Hawes is saying the communists are just self-identified liberals. Hawes is literally already lying, and the debate hasn't even started yet.
Party is going. So I'm a communist in the sense that, the communism in the sense of leading nations through industrialization and focusing on the development of the productive forces and, focusing on consolidating sovereignty and political dictatorship in such a way that can't be usurped by the interests of the capitalist class. So this type of communism is not very much, the history of it in the United States is limited. The golden age of the Communist Party here was in the 1930s, right? And then with the Cold War, the onset of the Cold War, the rest is history. They began to persecute them, and then they basically became irrelevant. And then afterwards, you had the rise of liberalism, left liberals. You had so-called leftism, which was mainly based in students rather than the industrial workers that were the base of historical communism. So Jackson Hinkle and I and others, we represent a revived communist tendency in the United States. We're trying to restore something that has been lost in this country, which is a type of politics that's based in the working class, based in the interests of, the common people, and which brings to the fore the economic question, the property question, back into politics.
Okay. So the way we're going to do this, guys, is we're going to have 5
interests.
I didn't see that. The property question, of course, is that that communists do not believe we should have any private property. That's what they mean when they say abolish capitalism. The very specific definition of capitalism that communists and leftists have is private property ownership. They're not talking about corrupt capitalism. They're not talking about crony capitalism. They're not talking about any of that stuff. They want to eliminate your ability to own private property. That means your ability to own a home, your ability to own land, your ability to own a small business, your ability to own intellectual property, your ability to own an apartment rental as a landlord, your parental rights are considered to be a form of private property, and your individual liberties are considered to be a form of private property. Every single time they say abolish capitalism, those are the things they want to abolish. So this is not like, as some of the dissident right-wingers think, this is not like National Socialism. National Socialism still allowed people to buy houses. In fact, they incentivized people having families and with benefits to buy houses and stuff like that. So under leftist communism, leftist socialism, they literally do not want you to be able to buy a home, don't want you to be able to buy land, don't want you to be able to have a business, no intellectual property, no parental rights, no individual liberties, stuff like that. That's what people need to know about that. Well, no, I've heard him. I think he is an older school communist in that regard, but I've heard him say other things. Hawes does not believe in intellectual property. I know that. Because Hawes went on Tim Pool, and he was like, Tim Pool was like, do I own my content, Hawes? And Hawes kept trying to obfuscate and deflect and saying, well, everyone owns the content, Tim. Hawes does not believe in intellectual property.
Okay, so first we're going to have opening statements. It's going to be 5 minutes where they're going to be able to, because this is going to be kind of a broad debate. Obviously, we talked about capitalism versus communism, but there's going to be other things as well, because the topic
Myron
is what
doesn't even know how to
caused
define
the
capitalism,
issues in
but
the United States, and obviously that's going to come into play and a multitude of other factors. So we're going to have opening statements, 5 minutes each to state their arguments, and then we're going to have 5 rounds.
Can we please not talk about this right now, because that is not what this debate is about. I don't want to, like, I know I brought it up just because there are dissident right-wingers that are watching this. My only point is that the definition of capitalism that the dissident right has is not the same as the definition of capitalism that the far left has, and the dissident right-wingers that are watching need to understand that, because National Socialism still has private property. Far leftist radical revolutionary socialism does not. I don't want to go down that road any further than that.
3 minutes each, where they're gonna be able to make their arguments uninterrupted, of course, and then we're gonna have 3 rounds, 5 minutes each, where it's open dialogue and they're able to kind of go back and forth and speak at the same time. So who wants to go first, by the way?
I can open first.
You want to go open first? All right, cool. So let's put 5 minutes on the clock. I'll have my timer here as well, and we'll hand it off to Andrew, and he'll make his first opening statements. We got to watch 2 bills on the side.
Give me 1 minute.
Yeah, bills will fire one up, but yeah, I'll keep mine for now. Okay, Andrew, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so first I want to thank you guys, of course, for hosting, and Haas for coming out here today. I've known Haas for a long time. Way back when I started streaming, it was around the same time he started streaming. I've always liked him personally. I just hate his politics, right? So I think that's...
I don't even know that this is true. Haas is a leftist communist. Andrew Wilson is an internet grifter. So I don't actually think Andrew Wilson's going to be advocating for capitalism, because Andrew Wilson does not understand the leftist definition of this is why I harp on the definition of capitalism so much. Andrew Wilson, I promise you, does not know that the far left defines capitalism as private property ownership. I promise you that Andrew Wilson has a completely different definition of capitalism, and that's what he's going to be trying to put on Haas, because he does not understand that the far left definition of capitalism is private property ownership. So do I think that Andrew Wilson's going to be defending capitalism? No, I don't. I don't think he knows how it's defined. This is a leftist, Stalinist, communist, internet influencer grifter versus a right-wing internet influencer grifter. And that's all this is. But normies are going to think that these two people know what they're talking about. That's why we're listening to it.
A fair assessment. So we're getting to what is the root cause in America of the problem. It comes down to the founding of the Enlightenment principles of the United States, which in this founding of these Enlightenment principles, we had no American identity.
No,
there was no
you can't.
American identity which we were able to adopt. The egalitarian and Enlightenment principles have led to the current kind of progressive, I would almost say, zeitgeist that you see now. So to go through what these principles are.
Andrew Wilson believes that communism in the United States was created by Enlightenment values.
For egalitarianism.
All right.
The idea that all men are created equal, for instance. These are all Enlightenment principles. Now, Haas, he kind of adheres to a philosopher named Hegel. Hegel was part of the idea of many of these Enlightenment principles, in fact. I reject Enlightenment principles categorically, and I believe that those Enlightenment principles are the direct root. Now, that said, I also think that Bolshevik murderous Jewish communists killed the Orthodox king. They killed the Orthodox king in Russia. They did a Bolshevik takeover of the entire nation. I do think that this is part of what is considered a revolutionary spirit, and that spirit is alive and well inside of the communist ethos and ideology. And I think that communists often pretend that it's not, but it is.
Yeah, well, that's a good question, because he didn't really define what he means by Enlightenment principles. So what does that even mean? Bro, stop. I appreciate the super chats that you sent in. I do not want this type of distraction in my chat. Okay, so if you're going to comment on what's going on. No distracting bullshit and shit posting. So what does Andrew, does anyone know what does Andrew Wilson mean when he says enlightenment principles? Like, what is his specific definition?
The idea of continual revolution, and that is part of the egalitarian principle of the United States, which was founded on revolution.
Oh yeah. Oh, I am.
So I think that this is a huge problem
money. Goodbye.
inside of this ideology. Now I'm going to move, because it's such a broad topic, I have to kind of move around a little bit to kind of understand the central communist plot. The idea is, and Marxist theory is pretty broad, but the general idea here is a continual social revolution until we get to the point where we get it right.
Wrong. Andrew Wilson can't define what Marx wants to do. Let's just listen to that again. I was distracted by blocking an asshole in my chat. Let's listen.
States, which was founded on revolution. So I think that this is a huge problem inside of this ideology. Now I'm going to move, because it's such a broad topic, I have to kind of move around a little bit to kind of understand the central communist plot. The idea is, and Marxist theory is pretty broad, but the general...
No, Andrew Wilson. No. If you want to understand the central focus of Marxist theory, it can be very easily stated in one single sentence. Abolish capitalism. That's it. That's what Marx wanted to do. Abolish capitalism. Abolish private property ownership. This is literally what it says in the Communist Manifesto. It could not be any more clear. Marx is incredibly consistent. Marxists are incredibly consistent. Socialists and communists are incredibly consistent. All they want to do, their entire focus on everything, is abolish capitalism. If you do not know this and you cannot say this in one simple sentence, then you do not understand the left. I am not asking what the definition is according to the internet. I am asking what Andrew Wilson's definition is, because we don't know how he defines it. So the internet can say whatever the internet wants to say. That doesn't actually matter. It doesn't answer the question. What is his specific definition is the question that I asked. Yeah, they effectively are.
Idea here is a continual social revolution until we get to the point where we get it right, whatever that means, right?
Where we get it right, whatever that means abolishing capitalism, you retard.
The reason I wanted to do this debate specifically with Haas is because what I don't want is traditional commie speak. And here's what I mean about this.
Come on.
It's language academic prattle that relies on communist linguistics without actually speaking plainly what it is that you mean to say. So what I'm asking Haas to do tonight for me and for the audience is to just speak very plainly. And
Andrew Wilson is going to be disappointed. Andrew Wilson is such a retard. Haas cannot listen. Socialists, communists, Marxists, I use the three terms interchangeably because they use them interchangeably. Socialists, communists, and Marxists speak a completely different language. They might sound like they're speaking English. They are not speaking English. Andrew Wilson seems to have some semblance of the idea that socialists and Marxists and communists speak a completely different language, but just saying, bro, can you stop speaking your language? Can we just speak English? That's retarded. Because Haas literally can't do that. What people on the right don't understand is that being a communist, being a Marxist, being a socialist, to these people, this is an innate part of their identity. This is like if Andrew Wilson went to France and walked up to like a random French person on the street and said, bro, can you just stop speaking French? Can you just speak in plain English? Can you stop speaking French? Or if he went to like Japan and walked up to like a random Japanese person and was like, can you just stop speaking Japanese? Really, do we have to do this Japanese thing? That's exactly what he's doing to Haas. He's saying, can you just stop speaking like a socialist? Can you just stop? No, he can't stop because this is part of who he is. And so Andrew Wilson is about to be really disappointed because there's no possible way that Haas can like meet this requirement.
The reason that I'm asking that is because, and you know this, there's tons of communists who do obfuscation by moving towards Marxist principles, and they have distinct meanings which are different than the meanings how we see them in the commons. Example of this is freedom. Perhaps Marx has a distinct definition or way he views freedom, and I don't know exactly what that's going to be. I'm going to view it a different way. So I would like it to be plain speak and not typical Marxist prattle. So that's why I wanted to do this debate specifically with you. And now you kind of have the outline of how I view the world, why I view Marxism as such a problem and communism as such a problem, and what the root is of the problems inside of America, which start with egalitarian principles. I believe that communists take advantage of egalitarian principles. They always plan to take advantage of those principles to institute communism. And with that, I'll yield my time.
Okay. All right. I'll put 5 minutes on the clock for Haas, whenever you're ready.
I'm not a big fan of semantics. I don't think anyone is. It obfuscates the ability to communicate words clearly and get the meaning across. However, I think an exception should be taken in semantically speaking for something that's actually not necessarily Marxism. Let's just begin with Christianity and the Lord's Prayer. Let's begin with the etymology of the word sin in Christianity itself. And scholars will find that etymologically and linguistically, they'll find that the word sin can be traced back to debt. And the Lord's Prayer, which says, forgive us of our sin, and Jesus, who announces in his first sermon, the Jubilee year, which was a cyclical tradition among the Jews to cancel the debt every so often. The core of the whole thing was about debt, and that's what really my view about the chief contradiction or the problem of America stems from. I mean, we could go to the Enlightenment, and defining exactly what that is, I think, would be difficult, although we could use Kant's definition and so on. But in my view, the root cause of America's decay and the root cause of America's problem is actually very simple. It's debt. It's the fact that our total liabilities have far surpassed our assets. There is no way that the total national debt in the United States could ever imaginably ever be paid off. The amount of personal income, household debt that Americans have could never be paid off. And we are faced with a problem where the debt is being used as a pretext for the 1%, an extremely small minority of exploiters and capitalists to gobble up and seize all of the assets and all of the wealth of this country on the basis of them being collateralized in the first place. So to me, the real root cause of the problem is that we are being held to an economic principle, namely the strict kind of the narrow terms of a very ruthless form of capitalism, and we're being crucified and penalized for having basic economic needs that we need met, not only at the level of public spending, but at the level of individuals.
When Bahaz says basic economic needs, what he means is the government should provide everyone with a place to live. You don't own your home. The government should provide everyone with a job. You don't get to choose what job you want because there are no more private businesses. The government owns all the businesses. The government will assign you a job. The government should own all the means of production. The government should make the decisions about what is produced and what is not produced. The government should provide people with all health care because everyone needs health care. So that should be provided for free by the government. The government should be providing all public education, no private education, because if you have private education homeschooling, that makes things unfair. The government should control all energy. They should control who eats their home in the winter, who has gas to go places. And the government controls the food supply. They control what you eat. They control how much you eat. You go get your daily rations from the government. That's what Hawes means. He's not going to say that, but that's what he means.
Who need to get by and make a living for themselves. And just because of that, they're being punished with endless and self-multiplying and unpayable debt. And to me, communism, if you want to simplify it as far as how I see it in this country, communism means canceling the debt. This is precisely what those murderous Bolsheviks did, which is what incurred the response of every major great power on planet Earth invading revolutionary Russia in 1917, 1918, because what was Lenin's first act? He canceled all of the foreign debt. The Tsar had accumulated all of this debt from the French banks in order to finance the limited extent of industrial development that partaking in. And the debt was unpayable. It was immiserating the Russian people, the Russian peasant. They were becoming slaves. They were becoming proletarianized.
Awesome,
so what does
Leonard.
the revolutionary Bolsheviks do when they take power? They cancel the debt. I don't think the elites really care about your ideology as much as they care about what you do. And the one thing consistently we see across history is that when you cancel the debt, when you raise the question, the property question of debt, you are touching upon something that they regard as very...
The property question of debt. That's where he's trying to obfuscate the fact that abolishing capitalism means abolishing private property ownership. This is what Hawes does. He tiptoes around this issue so that you don't understand that this means abolishing all private property.
Sensitive. You're touching upon the very source of the power of the international capitalist class, the thing that allows them to gobble up and steal and loot the material wealth of all mankind. And to me, communism is already in the Bible. It's not necessarily something that begins just with Marx. The revolutionary message of Jesus Christ, and I do regard him as a revolutionary, was to cancel the debt.
Guys.
And it's also my message. I'll yield the rest of my time if there's any.
All right. Yeah, there's a minute left, but I guess we'll go into round one.
So are you saying communism is freedom?
Yes.
Yes, I think so. I mean, if you look at the Liberty Bell, it uses a term, a Hebrew term. I think you'll have to forgive me because I don't think I remember it exactly. It's something Durir or something like that. Anyway, the term refers to the emancipation of debt servants. It refers to the emancipation of people who had to pledge their families, their land, and even themselves because they couldn't pay back debt to the creditors. So this is even on the Liberty Bell that we have here in the United States using that term.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go into round one. So we kind of see where both of you stand. I guess I'll give a quick summary here. For those of you that are just tuning in, we're having a debate on what led to degradation in the United States, what the root cause problem is, and obviously we're going to get into the topic of capitalism versus communism. But Andrew's stance is he rejects enlightenment. He believes that enlightenment was the beginning of the end here, and Marxism. And Haas is more along the lines of debt is the main problem, and communism solves that. Would that be fair summation of what you guys said?
Sure.
Obviously, I grossly
you're paraphrasing. We understand.
Okay. All right, cool. So we're going to round one here. I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock for Andrew. Andrew, whenever you're ready, I'll start it.
Sure.
3 minutes on the clock. Yep. From this point forward, we're going to do 5 3-minute rounds, and then we're going to do 3 5-minute rounds. And then we're going to have a Zoom call after this, by the way, guys. So you guys in the Q&A, and you guys can interact with us and have a good discussion with the Chaos Club guys. So that'll be after, so stay tuned. Whenever you're ready, Andrew, and I got my time here.
Okay, I'm ready.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the idea that communism would be necessary to cancel out debt is absurd. It's absurd on its face. We have plenty of history to demonstrate this. Andrew Jackson already did this. Andrew Jackson killed the central bank. He used the entirety of his administration to pay off all the national debt, which he did. Okay, so why communism would be necessary to pay off the national debt, I have no idea. There's certainly tons of systems and models which could be used that are non-Keynesian to do this. So I have no idea where the criticism is. If you're saying that debt can be crippling to a nation, I totally agree with you. However, communist nations in the past, including Stalin's nation of Russia, was also under crippling debt. I mean, communism did not prevent it at all from incurring a massive amount of debt, which also led to financial collapse, in fact, because it didn't have access to external capital and needed it very desperately, in fact, I would say, in order to keep its country propped up. So I would kind of categorically reject first in term of we need communism to cancel the debt. We have a historic example. The president already did this in Andrew Jackson. He completely killed a central bank concept, gave the ability to Congress to coin money, paid off the entirety of the national debt. He had nothing to do with communism whatsoever. Most certainly wasn't a communist. Communism had nothing at all to do with that. And I'd like to start there. Maybe I can start the inquiry there so that we can just kind of dive into it without kind of bloviating for 3 minutes, so we can just get right into it.
Okay. All right. I'll put 3 minutes on the clock for Haas to respond to that.
Sure. I think that the problem, though, is that even if we accept at face value that Andrew Jackson somehow in this sweeping way acted against the creditor class, which I think is false. I think what he actually did was he got rid of the Hamiltonian, which is more like a national bank, not necessarily a central bank like the.
We need to pay attention to all of the words that Hawes is using to replace capitalism, because he's trying to do trickery. Debt is code for capitalist. Creditor class is code for capitalist. And I mean, like, okay, okay. I was just going to say something about the Jews, and I'll just put that out there, that I don't know how this debate is going to proceed without there being some acknowledgement of where these things come from and that they're Jewish ideas. But okay, I'm just going to throw that out there for right now.
The Federal Reserve, which is strictly privately owned. And that could also be interpreted as a pro-creditor move. But even Andrew Jackson, what is he regarded as historically? He's regarded as a populist, right? So what communism and Marxism will often talk about, politically speaking, is that society is divided by a class struggle. And if you want to act against the interests of creditors, you have to have your base of support somewhere. And if your base of support is not in the people who have all the money and have all the resources and have all the wealth, it seemed like at face value you're going to be screwed, but actually the multitudes, the majority of people, the working class, that's a base of support that could be relied upon to achieve goals that are in favor of them, right? There's more of them numerically. So that's an advantage that can be drawn. So part of the historical class struggle is always this struggle between a ruling class and the masses, which are part of a different class, right? And in the case of Andrew Jackson and other cases of populist leaders, I mean, for example, even the Farmers Alliance and the Populist Party, they were calling for a cancellation of debts, and they weren't Marxists and they weren't explicitly communists. But as long as they're unable to scientifically understand the ability for their strategy to work and succeed, as long as they're unable to understand the dynamics I just mentioned, that it's a class struggle, that you need this reliable basis of support, inevitably what's going to happen is exactly what did happen in American history. The creditors will return. Again, this is off of the premise that Andrew Jackson was an creditor president, which I disagree with. But even if we assume that was true, it's clear that the way history played out was exactly the opposite. It's clear that the banking class, the creditor class, actually emerged here in the United States from the indigenous industrial capitalists that were promoted already under Lincoln, right? So I would respond basically with, well, why did the debt come back if it was so simple?
Yeah, so...
Okay.
Yeah.
I will go. Okay, so that concludes that round one. We'll go ahead to round two. I'll put 3 minutes on the clock again, and go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, so I mean, this is going to be a continual struggle. As long as you have leadership which wants access to money, the only thing that they can do is offer up their people as a form of credit for that money. That's the only thing they could do, is offer up the tax base as a form of credit. You know this, and I know this. This is the way that all nations basically back up what they need as far as credit for their nation. They're going to put the taxpayer,
what does this have to do with communism,
as the kind of collateral for whatever the loan is that they need. So the reason that this is kind of occurring again and again and again cyclically, I would actually say that this is due to egalitarian principles. So this idea where you're taking humanity out of this, I think that what happens with egalitarian principles is they form small microgroups. These microgroups then have their own assessed and addressed interests. And once they realize that they can raid the treasury via the vote, once they realize that they can vote in their own interest to steal your money, whatever these groups are which formulate, they will do that. And that is part of I think, democracy in and of itself, and egalitarianism in and of itself. Communism does nothing to solve for that. How would communism, absent a central authority, where it was some type of totalitarian?
What does Andrew Wilson think that communism is? Andrew Wilson was just like, how would you, absent a central authority? Does Andrew Wilson believe that communism doesn't have a central authority? Hang on.
I think, democracy in and of itself, and egalitarianism in and of itself. Communism does nothing to solve for that. How would communism, absent a central authority,
there it is,
where it was some type of totalitarian dictatorship? I do not understand how communism can actually solve for this issue. If you're going to allow people to participate,
Andrew, Hawes is the executive chairman of the American Communist Party. Do you really think that Hawes, giving himself the title of executive chairman, do you really think that Hawes doesn't view himself as the central authority figure?
In any sort of democratic process whatsoever, and you're going to allow them to participate in any sort of government process whatsoever, they're going to have to be able to vote or somehow participate. Once they realize that they can steal, Group A can steal from Group B via the vote, they will do so because Group A will always outnumber Group B. Group B will always outnumber Group C. They can always vote themselves Group A, B, C, and D's money. All you need to do is have the numbers. Communism, this was known, was a big problem with. This is why Giovanni Gentile himself kind of points to the idea of these large trade corporations swallowing up the smaller trade corporations. Now, these were actually trade unions, but he kind of understood. He came from the idea of Marxism and communist theory. So he says, well, wait, we need a body of the state which can control for these small groups coming in and basically taking over these other groups just via numbers. You point to this yourself when you say, look, they have the numbers. I agree. Group A has the numbers. Group A can always vote or use force to take from Group B.
What is he talking about?
You still haven't really explained to me how communism solves for this problem. I don't understand how communism itself or Marxist theory is going to solve for that very human problem.
Okay. I'll turn it back to Haz here. I'll put 3 minutes on the clock, and whenever you're ready.
I'm a little bit confused about exactly what you're talking about, because it seems
I
clear
am
to me
too.
from concrete historical examples that the only forces politically in modern world history that have ever been able to wage and mount a long-term defiance of the global creditor class, and which is therefore the global capitalist class, have obviously been communist states. I mean, what loans did Stalin need to take out and debt the Soviet Union into? What loans did China need to take out under Mao in order to enslave and indebt their country to international capitalists? No such thing, because we have to look at the source of where credit comes from. Credit doesn't just come out of thin air. It comes from actually controlling the means of production. I don't want to use Marxist jingo because I know you have a kind of allergy to that, but
it's fine to do. Just explain what the term means.
Means of production. It just means the fundamental way in which the basic necessities, economic necessities of your country.
Pop quiz for the chat. What does means of production mean? Hawes is not telling the truth, by the way. But my chat will tell the truth because my chat has spent thousands of hours listening to real communists and socialists right alongside with me. What does Hawes mean when he says the means of production? When Hawes says the means of production, he means the people. He means the people. The people are the means of production. The people are the means of production. The means of production, specifically of capitalism, is the nuclear family. The family is the means by which new proletarian workers are literally produced. That is how the engine of capitalism keeps going. Is the nuclear family produces the workers go into the world and become oppressed workers under capitalism. And the cycle repeats over and over and over and over and over again. When they're talking about the means of production, they are not talking about the factories. The factories are one step. Make no mistake, they want the factories, they want the equipment. But in today's world, the means of production are the people. It's the people, the people. That's what he means. Every single time a Marxist, a socialist, a communist says that they want to control the factories and it's just about the factories, bullshit. Bullshit. The two idiots on the screen are the means of production. The people. They want to control us. We, the people, are the means of production, not the factories and not the machines. People, the collective, the workers, the labor. They want to control us. This is absolute bullshit. Stop fucking lying right now. Abolish the family is literally in the Communist Manifesto. I have covered more abolish the family content than anyone else on the internet. I literally have Marxists on video repeatedly over and over and over and over and over again, calling for the abolition of the nuclear family, calling for the abolition of parental rights. They consider parental rights to be a form of private property under capitalism. I have them on tape repeatedly saying this. Stop fucking lying. You might legitimately not know, because I know more about Marxist ideology and my chat knows more about Marxist ideology than pretty much anyone else on the internet. We know more than most socialists and leftists do, but stop coming in my chat and lying right now. No one's ever seen you here before. We don't know who you are, but we know what we've seen on video over and over and over and over and over again.
Are produced. How do people get clothed? How do they get fed? How do they get shelter, right? How are things made? So this is the natural resources. This is the factories. This is the technology. These are all the fundamental meat and potatoes of an economy that are necessary for human beings in a given context of civilization to exist as they do. So credit, the ability to actually issue credit, comes from a fundamental stranglehold and control over means of production. Historically speaking, it was always.
So if they want to abolish the family, how will they propagate their communist state? The state owns the people. The state is in charge of raising the children. There are no longer parental rights. Parental rights do not exist. The children belong to the community. When they say it takes a village, they literally mean it takes a village. They want kids to have multiple sets of parents. The state will be in charge of everything your kids learn. The state will be in charge of the kids' health care. The state will be in charge of what they eat. The state is literally in charge of everything from birth all the way up until death. There are no more parental rights.
Land. If you controlled the land, you could use that land as collateral to give out loans and further gobble up more land, because debtors would have to pledge their land in order to take out the loan.
This is a line from the Communist Manifesto. This is a line I'm pretty sure that's from the Communist Manifesto, right, Sam? To children from their parents, do we want to take children from their parents or by their parents? To this crime we plead guilty. But you say we destroy the most hallowed of relations when we replace home education by social education. That's what the Communist Manifesto says. They address abolish the family explicitly. Right before, and literally the paragraph before, they address taking over the schools. Nope, it's more complicated than that. I'm not going to do a big breakdown on this channel. You're welcome to avail yourself of all of the abolish the family content that I've created on this topic. Again, I've created more than anyone on the internet. Go to my YouTube channel, just search abolish the family. It'll come right up. Go over to my Substack, carlin.substack.com, search for abolish the family. It'll come right up. But I'm not going into a deep dive on abolish the family right now. Social education means public schools. Yup, there's other things as well. But the state would control all schooling. No homeschooling is allowed. No private schools. No charter schools. The state controls everything.
So historically, this is the origin of pro kind of creditor classes emerging across many different eras of history. But in the case of the capitalist era, it's actually clear that we have an ownership of the means of production that is purely for profit, which is owned by us and gobbled up by a small minority, which inevitably culminates in monopolists like the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, the Morgans, and so on and so on. And they are the ones who actually built the foundation of the Federal Reserve banks in the United States. If it wasn't for the fact that they owned the railways, they owned the oil, they owned all of the factories, and so on, the steel, the rise of the Federal Reserve and the pro-creditor policies we see today wouldn't have been possible. So this communism solves this problem because the fundamental means of production are owned in common. They're owned by the state. They're owned by the people in some other form. And this prevents the need, it prevents the need from taking out foreign loans necessarily in order to develop your country. You can develop from scratch. Now, there's drawbacks from that because it creates instabilities that, historically, I won't deny, have led to brief but very, very severe, economic dysfunction, right?
10 seconds.
Yeah. So, but I don't see the problem. I don't see how communists haven't solved this problem. I don't understand what you're getting at there.
Yeah.
Okay. That's 3 minutes. We're going to go on to round 3. Put 3 minutes on the clock again. We got chats. I'll read chats after.
You're trying to argue that the state already controls the schooling. You have no idea, bro. I'm sorry. Just because the state has to approve a curriculum now, it is not anywhere close to what private schools will not exist under communism. Homeschooling will not exist under communism. There are no parental rights. There is no way, even with the public school, that you can go into the school and say, I don't want my kid to learn this. I don't want my kid to read this book, because they're not your kids. I wish conservatives would stop trying to convince people, well, the world is basically communist already, and all these institutions are communist, and it's already gone, it's already over, because it's not, actually. It's not. Real communism, real socialism is significantly worse than anything that's going on right now.
This round, because they're in the middle of a good thing here. Ready, Andrew?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, you still haven't actually explained how communism has solved this issue. So, yes, it's true that rich industrialists definitely got together with the political class in order to pass the Federal Reserve Act. There's no doubt that that's true. I agree with you that there's a groundwork setting for this with rich industrialists who definitely move towards the Federal Reserve. There's just no doubt. That's a matter of historic fact. However, you still haven't really explained how it is that you would prevent Group A, if they're going to participate in your communist utopia or society, from stealing the wealth of Group B, right? As long as they can vote or somehow participate in the political...
Andrew. There is no privatized wealth under communism. Andrew wants to know, how are you going to prevent people from stealing the wealth of other people under communism, Hawes? There is no private wealth under communism. I don't believe you, because you're coming in my chat speaking conservative talking points. This happens every single time a conservative comes into my chat and mouths off conservative talking points, is I say those are conservative talking points because I know where those talking points come from. And then the conservative goes, I'm not a conservative. You're a liar. Do not argue with me on this. Either you're here to learn or you can get the fuck out.
Political process, they can vote themselves Group B shit. There's not, I don't understand how communism solves for that. You say, well, the state owns the means of production along with the people. So when it comes to credit, well, the people are still going to be the form of credit. You say, well, traditionally it was land.
Moment of clarity.
That's true, but people have to work the land. So it's still the people who are the credit, right? They're still whatever the bond is for your collateral.
A moment of clarity.
So if you're a nation and you want to take out a big loan, you're going to say, hey, we can pay this loan back because here's our tax base, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. You still haven't actually explained how in communism, if people are allowed to participate in the political process, how do you prevent them from stealing the capital if they have a larger group than Group B? Can you just directly answer? It's still my time, but just go ahead and give the direct answer.
I mean, China is a communist country which doesn't have this problem. Does that not answer it? Because the reason they don't have the problem...
That's a mixed economy.
Well, look, the Soviet Union didn't have that problem, and neither did China, because in order for different private groups to constitute themselves as separate political interests...
They weren't allowed to participate, though.
You're right, precisely. That's the meaning of proletarian dictatorship. You have a one-party state. You don't allow different groups and private interests to constitute themselves as a political power.
Authoritarianism. Ultimately.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so authoritarianism under a single person.
Not necessarily under a single person, but certainly under a single party.
Okay, so if we're moving towards authoritarian communism, right, now we can kind of move into
the real kind, like historically.
Yeah. So now we can kind of move into the rest of it here. So this dictator, he's going to set all trade policies, right, or this authoritarian group. People themselves will be unable to participate inside of the government structure that you propose.
I completely disagree. I think that one-party dictatorships, such as in the Soviet Union and China, have been much more able to integrate the input and participation of the masses.
I don't mean to cut you off.
How this would actually work, and we've seen them describe this before, is your local. First of all, no more states. There would be no states under communism. So just like discard any notion you have about we are the United States of America. There will be no more states. There'll be no more borders. They don't believe in borders at all. So let's just start with that. How they envision this working is that there would be like local kind of like community groups where everyone in the community can go and talk about and discuss issues. There would be elected local leadership. That leadership would rotate out on a regular basis for other people to participate in it. And people in the community can go and give their opinions, and they can discuss their needs, and they can discuss what's working, they can discuss what's not working. And then the community leadership kind of makes the final decision about like what they're going to do. And they constantly are in a phase of like iterating and all this stuff where people do get to go and talk and have a say. They get a say in electing who's going to be on that board and all that stuff. Then there are representatives from the local communities that go to like the National Congress or whatever. It's kind of like the House of Representatives. It's more proportional representation. It's not going to be about the Senate. They don't believe in the Electoral College. They don't believe in that sort of stuff. Your local like communities will elect people to go to the National Congress where they can give their input and they can talk about different issues and stuff like that at a higher level. Ultimately, the executive chairman in this case, because Haas is a Stalinist, is the one that's going to be making like decisions, right? He's like the buck is going to stop there. But that is effectively how they would see it working. So in the United States, what that means is no more Constitution. They need to abolish the Constitution in order to make this happen. No Supreme Court, no Electoral College, no United States Senate, no White House, really, no president in the way that we think of the president right now. There are no checks and balances on the power. It's more like it's like if the Speaker of the House position was like the supreme leader, and everyone else kind of had input into it, and they could go to a general place that's elected based on proportional representation and vote for stuff. But like, you have to wipe out any semblance that you have that this system would function like our current system, because it would not. And individual rights would not be protected. You are part of the collective. That's it.
It was a question, so it wasn't a disagreement.
Oh, okay. What's the question again?
I'm asking specifically.
10 seconds.
The novella.
Are you just moving towards authoritarianism? If you're moving towards authoritarianism, unilateral authoritarianism, can you explain how that mode works?
Do you want me to answer directly, like how it works in historical examples?
Time is up, so we'll turn it over to you anyway. So and real quick, you guys are okay with that? Where you guys can ask as long as you guys are both okay with it.
Yeah, well, sometimes we're gonna have to clarify these things.
No problem. So what I'll do is this: is what I'll do. If since you guys are like not like fucking idiots like other debaters, you guys can ask each other questions in the middle of your thing, and it'll count for your time, right? So that way we'll keep it fair. But you get like clarifying questions and stuff like that. Since this is a complex topic,
right?
All right, I'll turn it right over to you. 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Hang on, we got a super chat, Andre. Carlin, I think you mean you can't fix stupid. The stupid will have to find out communism the hard way from the streets once their individual rights, 1A, 2A, etc., are gone, or the easy way from the books and history. Yep. I have long since accepted that I can't fix stupid. Indeed. Thank you for the super chat. I do appreciate it.
Go ahead.
When you just have a single party, which is based on the single purport that we want to increase the prosperity and serve the common interests of your country, then there's no more negotiation and political debates about like what the goal should be. Everyone's on the same page that the goal is about serving the common interests, serving the people, increasing the productive forces and the wealth, and so on and so on. Now that you've set that goal about,
I have 2 rules in my chat. Number 1, don't be a dick. You will not insult me. You will not insult anyone else in the chat. I can do whatever I want because you're in my house. If you don't like my tone, you can just leave. The number 2 rule that I have in my chat that you have just broken is no whining. No whining. I don't care about your feelings. If you can't deal with me, I promise you, you have no hope of dealing with the left at all. If you can't deal with a woman who has a tone you don't like, who correctly points out that you are shilling conservative talking points in my chat, then you are useless to me in terms of actually doing anything productive to fight back against the left. I do not care about your feelings. I do not want to hear your whining.
But the question is, how do you acquire the input and the data from below, from the people who are the least assimilated within the party's power structure apparatus, in order to make decisions that are popular and reflect the sentiments and the reality, more importantly, of your people, right? Well, for example, we have historical examples that show how this would work. In China, at the lowest, most rural smallest village level, you have party members that are there, that are leaders of their community, that are getting input from their community, that are actually accountable to their community. The accountability measures that, as a party leader, as a local political leader, not even necessarily a party one, you have to perform. You have to be doing good for your community. If you're
Local
not performing, if you're
leader,
doing bad by them and abusing your power, they'll report you to the person above, right? So this is not a matter of a hypothetical system we have to dream up and conjure from scratch.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Let me get clarity on 2 points, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So point one, when you say own the means of production, the people also own.
Goodbye, John or Prime. Ban.
What does ownership in this context mean?
That however the means of production are used, they have to be pledged ultimately in the last and final sense for a common goal, right? So, and whatever that common goal is defined by and by who, that's who owns it. So the Communist Party in China owns all of the land, right?
Right.
But they don't strictly define the parameters in every detail as far as how the land can be used. You can lease land from them and use it in ways that they can't account for beforehand, as long as it doesn't violate.
Well, Gold Becoming says, I'm afraid that even if we learn from real-life implementation of communism, there would still be way too many people who would still defend it while it was going on. We would not collectively wake up. You've literally just described what's going on right now. Now, I'm not going to say the world we're living in is communist right now, because it's just not. That's just not true. But we have the real world implementation of communism and socialism literally going on all around us. It's going on every single day in every public school district all over the country. It's going on every single day in businesses that have unions where these people are being recruited to far left political parties. It's going on every single day in terms of the media trying to push these ideas subtly out to the public. It's going on every single day in terms of laws and policies at the local, the state, and the national level that are getting implemented to slowly push everything left. It is going on right now. And they talk about it openly. And this is what I show people all the time. This is what we do on Socialism Saturday. This is what we usually do during the midweek stuff as well. But we do the really hardcore stuff on Socialism Saturday. It's going on all the time. And no one does anything about it, because people are so distracted with libs of TikTok and all this outrage porn bullshit that's produced by the Daily Wire and all of these clickbait, outrage, conservative, like grifting ops, that no one actually understands what's really going on. And then it just is allowed to continue and make progress until we're all fucked.
The fundamental goal, right? So if you're using the land in a way that ultimately benefits the country and benefits the overall goals of the party, you know, they're giving you room to be creative and entrepreneurial as far as how you're going to do that.
By the way, guys, that is why I harp so much on you have got to understand the basic definitions of what communists are trying to do. You have got to understand what they mean when they say capitalism. You have got to understand what specifically private property ownership means. You've got to understand what they're doing, because if you don't understand at the very basic level, you are not going to be able to identify it when it shows up in the real world. So... Azerwing asks, why haven't we met the super chat goal yet? We're like an hour in. Yeah, guys, if you appreciate my streaming this stuff, breaking it down, send in a $5 super chat, $10 super chat. We get $25 super chats on any given stream, and that meets the goal. Relatively easy peasy. If I don't meet my super chat goals, I may not be streaming as much. It's just the way it goes.
But can you own land just for the purpose of speculative profit, or
what
just
if you just want it
and you don't have any goal whatsoever,
you just
and
want it.
Yeah, I mean, you have there. It needs to be something that is compatible with the overall goals of.
Oz just said you can't own land. Did everyone catch that? I know I was talking over that. Hawes literally just said, again, what I said, capitalism means private property ownership. Private property means your ability to own a home, your ability to own land, private business, parental rights, etc., etc. Hawes is literally telling Andrew Wilson, you cannot own land.
Right? So if you're using the land in a way that ultimately benefits the country and benefits the overall goals of the party, they're giving you room to be creative and entrepreneurial as far as how you're going to do that. But can you own land just for the purpose of speculative profit, or
what
just
if you just want it
and you don't have any goal whatsoever?
You just
and
want it.
Yeah, I mean, you have there. It needs to be something that is compatible with the overall goals of the country, right?
He's saying you can only have land if you're doing something that is compatible with the overall goals of the country, which means you don't own the land. Everyone understands this, right? The only way that you can get land is if you are contributing to the overall goals of the country, because the decision-making apparatus grants you the land. If they decide to take that land back at any time because you're not contributing to the goals that they have, you don't own that land. You are being gifted that land by the state under the agreement that you will do with that land what the state wants done. Does everyone understand that? It's the same thing with a home. It's the same thing with a private business. I mean, private businesses don't really exist. It's the same thing with everything. You can't just go out and say, that's a really nice piece of land. I want to build a house there and buy it. That's not going to be possible. This is what Hawes is telling you.
Right? So this is what is meant by ownership. It's not necessarily see, people have a misunderstanding about the communism as common ownership and state ownership, because they think it's a matter of a unilateral managerial control. That's not necessarily true. Control and ownership are two different things. Control is about management and administration and the degree to which there's flexibility.
Hang on. No, that's not correct. This is not correct. The reason I'm bringing this up is because someone in the chat said this is correct, which is going to reinforce to the other people in the chat that think this is correct. This is not correct. They hate landlords and then they turn the state into the most powerful landlord ever. That's not correct. They hate landlords because landlords are private property owners that they perceive to be oppressors against the people renting their property. They view landlords as people who can just take away your house at any moment, right? Leftists view public ownership of the land as stewardship of the land. So it's not exactly the same thing. It's not viewed in the same way. Let me know if you need clarification on the distinction between that, but landlords, this is, well, not inequality, Fluffy Cow, inequity. Inequity is not the same as inequality. Landlords create inequity in that some people own private property and other people don't, right? So that creates a difference in resources. If everyone has access to the same resources, that eliminates the hierarchy. There's going to be no money. There's going to be no money. You get what the state gives you. Congratulations.
In freedom for people to find different ways to realize the same goal.
Seconds.
But ownership is fundamentally about sovereignty, right? Ownership is about the fact that, okay, if you're in China, this is our land. Foreigners and bankers and capitalists, they can't just take this land and use it for willy-nilly to enslave all of us and hold it against us. It's ultimately ours in the last and final sense. So, instance, that's what I meant to say. So, sorry.
No, that's fine. I added 30 seconds extra because he asked you a question in the middle.
Okay. Yeah,
that's why I added more time to you. That's time right there.
Yeah.
But did you want to finish your thought before I?
I was going to say, I was going to say...
You're talking about the difference between controlling and owning land.
Ownership is about sovereignty. It's a sovereignty question. It's not necessarily about administration and management.
Okay, fair enough. I'll put 3 minutes on again. And do you guys want this where we go ahead and you guys can ask questions to each other? Because I'll put more time on the clock.
Just open it up, honestly.
You guys want to open it up?
Yeah, I'm totally
okay, so that completes, because you went first, that completes round 3.
So question over on Kick from ADR Jacko, does private property ownership include your body labor? Well, yeah, it includes your body. It includes your individual liberties. Your body is no longer yours. Your body belongs to the state. You have no freedom of speech. You have no freedom of religion. I mean, the smallest form of like property is the individual. The state tells you what job to work. The state tells you where to live. The state tells you what food to eat. The state tells you what ideas you can have, what books you can read, what ideas you can consider, what ideas you can bring to the community, what land you can occupy. The state tells you what you're allowed to learn in school. The state tells you what healthcare you're allowed to get. The state tells you everything. You are part of the collective. Under communism, it is not about the individual. The individual is eliminated. The individual is in subservience of the collective.
We'll go ahead and make these. I'll put 5 minutes on. You guys okay with 5 minutes?
We'll take a quick break.
Quick break from word from our sponsor, and then we'll go ahead and restructure this stuff. So we completed opening in 3 rounds. Go ahead, Mo. Or I can read chats.
Oh, we gotta read the ads.
All right, yeah, go ahead, read the ad, and then we'll.
Okay, I'm not gonna do this stupid ad read.
Establish your getting W. That's from
blah blah blah.
Recorded history.
Oh, they're starving. That's how it is.
Okay. What else we got here? All right, cool. So we're gonna go ahead and put 5 minutes on the clock, guys. We're gonna go into more the open dialogue. We'll start with I think it's on Andrew.
Yeah. So Haz, I appreciate you opening it up too, because some of this requires a lot of clarification so we can get to the heart of these positions.
Sure.
And you're welcome to ask me whatever you want. And if you think you have a point that needs to be clarified and you need to cut in, I'm not going to take any offense to that.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So to kind of dive in here, I did notice something of a contradiction, and this is why I'm focusing on the ownership portion. What you mean by ownership here in the means of production. To me, ownership is this belongs to me, the individual. You're making kind of a different claim here.
Smart.
I think that ownership of property is a way to exercise power. And I think that you're trying to control that exercise of power at the individual level.
True.
And perhaps regulation could be good for that. But can you just clarify one more time, because we just had the break, what you mean by ownership here? Because when you gave the example of the Chinese, you said, well, wait a second. What can happen is they have a rep, and if the rep isn't doing, or the right thing, they move to the next rep.
That's just the ability to get people's input in the political process, not necessarily the fundamental ownership. The ownership is that all of the
this doesn't really have anything to do with what we're talking about. If someone comes out as polyamorous, does the non-polyamorous partner have a right to express they only want to be exclusive? They can express whatever they want. They just need to break up. It doesn't really have anything like that's when you break up. No. Because according to Myron, I am not supposed to talk on the internet. No one has any interest in what I have to say on the internet. I'm just a dumb woman. I have nothing to contribute. I should just go in the kitchen and make him a fucking sandwich, and he'll call me a bitch over and over and over and over and over again. He'll call me a whore over and over and over again, even though I've been married for 13 years. Myron Gaines isn't married. I've been married for 13 fucking years, but I'm still a whore according to him. So no. They should not swap Andrew out for me, because I would never lower myself to go on this show.
The land, for example, in China, is either owned by the state or it's owned by the cooperatives at the village level.
And Myron is gay.
And they have the power to lease out the land to whoever they want. And these leases are never permanent. They're a few decades or something.
What about individual interests? Individual interest for land ownership for just the sake of having it.
Yeah.
Well, how could that be an immoral proposition? How could that be a proposition in which you can say
equity.
This is wrong for a person to do, to actually own a thing which is then theirs?
Well, because it's not a matter of morality, it's a matter of power and politics. To own land, to truly own it, you have to conquer it by the sword. That's how you own land.
You don't need to, why
would I have a conversation with Haz? Absolutely fucking not. Haz is a liar and a con artist. Why would I talk to Haz? I can watch any debate that Haz does on the internet, and do commentary on it and show you, here's how he's lying, here's how he's obfuscating, here's how he's deflecting, there's no point. He's a liar and a grifter.
Moment that it must be conquered by
because
the sword.
there is no ownership of land to anyone or anything in history that was not conquered forcefully.
Perhaps
no ownership of land.
You could say certain groups come in and they take land, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the land isn't even occupied, right?
Right.
They didn't even need to use force. They just put up a flag and say, this is mine.
Yeah.
What makes it not theirs?
What makes it not theirs is, what makes it theirs historically from classical political economies, they'll say because their labor was used to cultivate the land and their labor is being used to participate in it, this is what makes it theirs. This is what makes it reflect their fundamental essence and their fundamental being, right? But when you have societies constituted by a very complex division of labor, or in order to produce the civilization itself at the aggregate level, you have a bunch of different moving parts and a bunch of different kinds of labor that are working together, that are necessary and indispensable for each other. I mean, for a factory, you need, there's so many different specialized roles just for something like that, right? That's just at the factory level. Now think of it at the level of a country. There's so many different types of labor that are necessary for a nation to exist, just to be able to feed itself and clothe itself and so on.
No disagreement there.
So how can we pin down, if you want to take this at a more moral level, that someone in particular is entitled absolutely to own this in the way that you're talking about, like at the level of sovereignty and power, when they are interdependent on others just as much as well?
Because if all we have is in what's intuitive, and it seems like this is the system that you're advocating is intuition, I don't see how else you're advocating for anything other than I'm going to be tongue-in-cheek a bit here, my preferences, right, and my intuition. Intuitively, people seem to want to own things themselves. They want those things to be theirs. They don't want them to be collective. For instance, right? I own my wife. Now, I don't mean ownership the same way that I would maybe own this studio or something like this.
Yeah.
But I think you understand the gist or the geist, as Hegel would say, of what I'm getting at here. She's mine. I'm not sharing her. I'm not sharing my kids, right?
Now, aside from
you're not sharing your
thing,
kids.
we can get into that later.
Yes, you are, Andrew. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Under communism, you do not have parental rights. Those kids are no longer yours.
But let's just say this mug. This is your mug. I want to drink out of it. I don't want to share with anyone else. It's mine. No. This is, I get what you're saying now.
Yeah.
This is my mug. I use it for something. It's mine. I'm the one who uses it, and it's mine, right? So you're giving content to it. You're using it in a way that is reflective of your humanity, reflective of your existence, and of course, any civilization recognizes and respects those boundaries. That this is yours because this is what you use, right? But here's the problem: capitalist private property isn't just about I want to use this.
Capitalist private property. What Hawes? Yes, that's exactly right. That's what I was just going to say. Hawes is about to do the whole personal property versus private property thing, here's how this game goes. We don't want to take your stuff, Andrew. We don't really want to take your stuff. There's still going to be personal property under communism. It's just the capitalist private property that will be abolished. So you don't have to worry, Andrew. We're not going to invade your space. We're not going to take your stuff. It's just the means of production that we're going to take. This is all a deflection. Because Hawes doesn't want people to know that private property, capitalist private property, is defined explicitly as your ability to own a home, your ability to own land, your ability to own a private business, your ability to own an apartment rental, your intellectual property, your parental rights, and your individual liberties. There is stuff that you can own under communism. You can own your phone, you can own your computer, you can own your books, you can own stuff. You can own your tools, you can own a car. That's personal property. But what Hawes is not going to admit is the long list of things that are included under capitalist private property. AD, that's a distinction without a difference. Well, no, it's not even. We've got to stop letting communists get away with this, because this is what they do every single time someone tries to question them on this. They say, no, don't worry. We're not going to take your stuff. Don't worry. That's your personal property. And it's all bullshit.
It's mine. No. This is, I get what you're saying now.
Yeah.
This is This is my mug. I use it for something. It's mine. I'm the one who uses it, and it's mine, right? So you're giving content to it. You're using it in a way that is reflective of your humanity, reflective of your existence. And of course, any civilization recognizes and respects those boundaries, that this is yours because this is what you use, right? But here's the problem. Capitalist private property isn't just about, I want to use this, and that's what defines its exclusivity. It's about an institution where you're pledging fundamental means of production and resources that we all depend on and all rely upon for the sole and exclusive purpose of making a profit. Not even necessarily making profit for like a predefined goal of like, I want to get rich, I want to have a yacht with women, and I want to have a luxurious life. Even that would be more compatible with communism because at least there's a goal that's human at the end of it, right? But the capitalist system doesn't have human goals. It's a maddening process of capital just self-expanding blindly only for the purpose of profit.
And that's 5 minutes there. I was going to just let him
Can we extend it for a minute?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, go ahead. So I'll put 2 minutes more on the clock. Go ahead.
These systems don't exist in a vacuum. When you say a capitalist system, you're talking about people. These are human beings who are at the heads of these systems.
True.
I don't believe that just because you're a capitalist, you're a monster. Of course, you don't believe that either.
No.
Nor if you're invested in a capitalist system, you're a monster.
No.
By the way, they haven't actually defined what capitalism means, and that's explicit because Andrew, again, I said this earlier, I'll say it again. Andrew has a completely different definition of capitalism than Haas does. They're not talking about the same thing. They're probably never going to get to that definition, but they're going to be talking past each other.
Clearly, though, people want to individually be able to have at least some autonomy, law, right? Law of yourself, to own things which are theirs and they share with nobody. It's not yours. It's not to help you. It's not to do anything for you. And you can go fuck yourself.
But that's just a personal use. That's for personal consumption.
Yeah, but the thing is like, why is it
true
that would in any way? Well, but hang on. You said when I asked about private land ownership, you said, no, you can't own that unless it's benefiting somebody else.
Right.
Oh, no. Okay. There's a misunderstanding there. Okay. I can clarify. I'm talking about, for example, owning fundamental means of production that like everyone relies upon, right? And you just saying, I want this just because I want it for no reason. Yeah. Well, that's if you want it just because you want to use it exclusively, that's still a reason, right? That's not for no reason. That's not an arbitrary thing. There's civilization, and it varies by what civilization we're talking about, recognizes boundaries by which, privacy of the individual is recognized. See, this is the thing that I think is so difficult.
This is such bullshit. This is all just deflection.
And I think this is maybe the language stuff you were talking about earlier, that Marxists are obfuscating language. Well, it's because things didn't always mean what they mean to us now, like private property. We think of private property, we're like, this is my lawn, it's private property, fuck off and don't come on my lawn. Like, oh, that's private property. But in reality, the private part of private property wasn't that it was an exclusively individual or human use. It was that this was institutionally cast off for a reason that is totally antisocial, totally incompatible with civilization. Culminating in capitalism is just money for money's own sake.
Well, can you give me an example of what you mean when you say this? An example of private property being utilized this way when you say, well, what it actually is.
I would say when banks own so many homes that are meant for people to live in, just for purposes of speculation and just for purposes of generating fictitious capital and fictitious profits that are not even productive. This is exactly what I'm talking about. A bank owns an asset.
Well, hang on, I'm sorry. Yeah. Let's back up. I'm talking on the individual level. Before we get to the corporate level.
That's the beautiful thing about what I'm talking about here. That's the kicker. We tend to think that capitalism promotes individual ownership and individual autonomy or whatever, but the opposite is true. Capitalism has led to banks owning everything, not individuals. And to me, that is
so now he's saying, don't worry, you don't have to worry about, you're not being able to own a home or land under communism because you already don't own a home and you already don't own land. The bank owns your home. The bank owns your land, which is not technically incorrect, but it also is a complete deflection from what Andrew is actually asking. Azerwing says, Hawes, if I give a really word salad answer, he'll get confused and think I'm right and answered his question. Yep, that's exactly right, Azerwing. I appreciate the super chat.
Exactly the consequence of the system of private property itself.
Yeah, but how would communism itself, the way that you are promoting it here, is not really telling us why we wouldn't just be shifting from bankers owning everything to just Group A owning everything. If you believe in force doctrine, Group A, in this case, government's just going to own everything.
Yep,
they'll
correct.
allocate the housing how they see fit instead of the bank. It seems like all you're doing is shifting from
Correct.
one person who owns everything and is then utilizing speculation, everything else in order to profit themselves, to just another group doing the exact same thing.
Well, I would say, although there's no guarantees that it would be perfect, I would say it would be an improvement. Why? Because the banker is accountable to no one. It's my private property. I can do whatever the fuck I want with it, and I'm accountable to no one.
So what Hawes is saying is, it's actually an improvement for you if the state owned your home and the state owned your land, because the state isn't going to fuck you over, guys. Pinky swear, promise, trust me, bro. The state's definitely not going to fuck you over under communism, but under capitalism, the bank owns your home and the bank owns your land, and the bank can fuck you over, but that's definitely not going to happen under communism.
Even if you have a corrupt...
Haas, hang on.
Yeah.
Who the hell are you accountable to when you have the force doctrine on your side?
People.
Banks,
what do you
one
mean?
thing banks don't have,
say the people.
Individual, banks themselves don't have force doctrine. They rely on governments who they bribe to protect them from, the people or whatever.
They own the government.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But in this case, all you're doing is shifting the goal to the government doing the exact same thing you're claiming these banks are doing.
On what
now
basis?
They have all the machine guns too. What redress do you think the people have?
Okay, so even if we're talking about a corrupt authoritarian government that's communist or something, right? Even if it's corrupt.
Wasn't that all of them?
No.
No?
No, they weren't fundamentally corrupt. But even then, even if we assume they were, it's still better, because even in order for them to not get overthrown instantly, right, they have to at least justify themselves on the basis that this is...
Hawes is saying that you have to justify yourself and be accountable to the people. Azerwing says yes, because the state hasn't ever used... the state would never use eminent domain. That would never happen. Never, ever, ever. Guys, please make sure you have mounted that like button for me. We are watching the debate between Andrew Wilson and Hawes on communism. Andrew Wilson actually seems to be a little bit more knowledgeable than I gave him credit for. He's not fully knowledgeable, but he knows a little bit more. Hawes, of course, is pretending to be some sort of MAGA communist, which isn't really a real thing. He's a Stalinist, really. But anyway, please mount the like button for me. Please make sure you're following me on whatever platform you're watching on. And let's keep going.
Is what we're using it for, and have to be held to that standard. Even if it was corrupt, that's better than if a banker owns everything or bankers own everything for totally antisocial purposes.
If the state is
just
corrupt,
to,
that's still better than the bank.
Systemically dysfunctional purposes, right? Ones that don't even make rational economic sense, just for the purposes of making money, but the money's backed up by nothing, and it's self-multiplying because of the way interest works, and it's totally negating its own fundamental premises. It's not being reinvested.
Even if I agree that this could be superior to a banker class, right?
Yeah.
It seems like neither class is necessary for humans to be dominant. So humanity can still move towards its interests, absent having an authoritarian, autonomous, communist government.
What's an example of that, though?
So an example of people self-governing during Jackson's day, this happened often. So you can look at an example in American history. Often, this was the case that people self-governed, especially around land ownership. Now, you talk about people who bought up large swaths of land. That's true. But originally, you have to remember that was done away with as well. You could not buy up X amount of acreage if it was outside of the public use.
Guys, I'm going to run downstairs and get a cup of tea. I'll be right back. I'm going to let this play. Let me know if I miss anything good. So the reason for this is they wanted to stop those monopolies from happening. So I agree with you in this sense that it's okay.
But they happened.
Under communism, the same exact types of things happened.
Like what? Like what do you mean?
Like the government now, you just have shifted the means of ownership.
But when has this happened under a communist government?
What? Which thing?
When has a creditor class, a monopolistic class, been able to just come and take over everything?
Who has it? So you're just shifting the authority from the bank to the government. So when does this happen under communism? Hang on, it always happens under communism. It's just that you shift who owns the means of production to the authoritarian portion instead of the banker portion. It's the same thing.
But at the worst, a communist government is mismanaging. They're not fundamentally using the resources for an antisocial private goal.
So, okay, when you say...
Or else, if they are, then it's like the collapse of the Soviet Union, where oligarchs just come and they just say, it's no longer communism.
But when you say antisocial goal, what do you mean by antisocial goal?
One that in no way is accountable to the public and to publicly accountable and stated and enunciated goals, like the 5-year plans they have. That
could be all. That's all private property ownership. I don't have to account for what I do with my private property to the public. It's none of their fucking business.
You're right, but a communist party does.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So the thing is if I'm under the communist party, right, and I have my private property, do I have to give it a fucking accounting to them of what I'm doing with my private property? If I own 300 acres and, you know,
what do you mean?
There's an eaves there, or there's something in the public domain.
Under communism, all of the fundamental means of production, including land, will be owned in common. Now, if you're leasing out the land, to, let's say, to the state, and you have the rights to the lease one way or another because historically your parents had it or whatever, do you have to be accountable for everything? I mean, no. I mean, look, you think Chinese fruit stand sellers have to report to the government everything they're doing? Absolutely not. There's even more. It's even ironic. They have more autonomy and freedom and wiggle room than here.
The government's turning a blind eye to it for the purpose of social cohesion.
Well, it's not that they're turning a blind eye. It's that they're not interested in just meddling and interfering with people's day-to-day lives. But
there's no benefit.
What the Communist Party is ensuring, though, right, is that people in the course of just living their lives normally are doing so in a way that is harmonious and compatible with the reproduction of civilization. This is the problem in America is not necessarily there's too much government or too little government. It's that we're not holding ourselves to the standard of being reproduced as a civilization. So antisocial values can be freely cultivated, pornography, OnlyFans, you name it. These are things that are not compatible with a functioning civilization.
These things under communism. So let me give you
what is one example of a communist?
Abortion completely thrived under communism, is only stamped out by Stalinists because they were extinguishing their civilization. The great abortion advocates in feminism were, in fact, communists. Some of the greatest abortion advocates. That is not conducive.
I don't think that's true at all. I think that what you're talking about is that abortion was legalized and relaxed initially because they eliminated all of the civil codes. But even the I wouldn't call them feminists, but even Alexandra Kollontai, for example,
you don't think she was a feminist?
No, I don't. Even though she was in favor of the legalization
she's considered one of the great feminist minds of our time, Haas.
By Western feminists, sure, but in Russia, that's not how she would be regarded. But anyway, look. Okay. The point is, even they recognized that even if it was to be legalized, they didn't think it was a good thing. They thought it was a necessary evil, and that their idea was that, it's harm reduction because people are doing it anyway because these are wartime conditions and it's very dangerous.
Hawes thinks that the feminists who were pro-abortion weren't communists. Hawes. Okay, here's what's going on. Communists like Hawes typically don't want to acknowledge that queer Marxists are a thing. They think that queer Marxists are not real communists. The Revolutionary Communists of America has said this. The Midwestern Marx guys have said this, and the Midwestern Marx guys work with Hawes. They just want to pretend that this whole kind of offshoot mutation of Marxism that we colloquially call queer Marxism doesn't exist. But no, that's not correct.
Dangerous to their health, and they said our goal is to eliminate this, but we're just going to make it legal so it's less dangerous to them. Now, we could disagree with that or agree with that. It's not necessarily my point. But even when communist countries allow for abortion, and many of them banned it, by the way, at different periods, I don't think there's any states in history that were more aggressively pro-natalist in terms of how much they were trying to pursue these policies than communist states. Let's remember that. But even in the cases where it is legalized,
but that came later, Hawes. You have to concede that came later.
We're talking about the first 10 years of the Soviet state.
But the thing is they foresaw that when they looked at how many abortions were happening, they went, oh shit, this is not going to be good for the numbers that we need for the state that we want. They didn't have any moral qualms with abortion itself. There was nobody out there moralizing about the great evil of abortion inside of these communist nations. Kollontai most certainly was not. And many of the feminists who I would consider to definitely be feminist thought leaders who worked alongside Stalin were not. They were doing everything, in fact, to promote abortion inside these communist nations. I think that is antithetical.
But who is promoting abortion?
I can give you a massive list, and you can also go to Occult Feminism. My wife wrote it.
Yeah.
She gives an entire list. But Kollontai is another one. These people worked directly with the Soviets. The Soviets definitely, well, before they were even...
Abortion liberates women from the gender binary, which they believe was created by capitalism. Rottweiler says, Hawes doesn't seem to have ever read Simone de Beauvoir. The foreword of her books were always about how much of a Marxist she was. Socialists lie indeed. Well, I don't even know if Hawes is lying, because like, I really think that like Hawes and the people that Hawes has surrounded himself with have convinced themselves that queer Marxists are not a real thing, or that they aren't communists, they aren't socialists. And I'm like, bro, where have you been? Have you been to any of the college protests? Because they're all communists and socialists, and they're all embracing queer ideology. So it is true that there are communists and socialists who reject queer ideology, but they're so blinded by their own bullshit that they don't understand that a large percentage of their peers completely embrace it. Yes, he is the leader of the group that formed when the Communist Party USA purged a bunch of their members. Thanks for the super chat, Rottweiler.
Really, Soviets. Well, as communism comes in, definitely abortion is something which was running rampant all over the place.
That's not really this is not an inherently communist thing. This is just a modernity thing. And that
wasn't that modern, right? What do you mean by modernity?
Because many European countries,
free birth control.
Many European countries had already laxed.
Hawes is a Stalinist, and I'm gonna bet you, I will bet all the money in my bank account that Hawes did not fully explain his positions to Nick, and he's doing exactly the same thing that he's doing here, which he's deflecting on his positions. He's not being specific with what he means. And because that's the only way that Nick would agree with him on everything except race, realism, and music, if I'm honest about it. Because if Hawes presented any sort of image, like here's what they do. Again, here's what they do. Don't worry. Your life isn't going to change that much. You're going to be able to get whatever you want. So Hawes was not, I would bet you if I watched the discussion that him and Nick had, Hawes is not going to be specific. Hawes isn't going to talk about private property ownership. Hawes isn't going to explain what private property ownership means, because quite frankly, I would be shocked if Nick Fuentes agreed with Hawes that you cannot own a home, you cannot own land, you cannot have parental rights, you cannot have intellectual property. Nick's literal business is around intellectual property. I guess he I don't know if he enforces copyright, but that's like what he does. So I really wish you guys would stop making such simplistic statements like this, because this, quite frankly, makes Nick look stupid, when in fact, I don't think Nick is stupid. I think Hawes was not being honest with what he was saying.
Abortion rights at that time. This is not a uniquely communist thing at all.
Which ones?
I can't name them off the top of my head, so I could concede that. But look it up. So they had already legalized it in some of them.
Yeah, some of them, maybe. But the thing is no, this was not considered a good thing at this time in history.
The communists themselves did not regard abortion ever as a good thing. I would like one example where communists are promoting it as a good thing.
I would say if you're morally...
What was this year time that you guys were talking about?
You want one example where communists are saying that abortion is a good thing? We are literally going to be watching a presentation. Bro, hang on. I will show you explicitly. Hang on. You want one example, Hawes? Give me 1 sec. We just got to bring it up. So we are going to be doing Haymarket Books Socialism Conference all weekend. The Socialism Conference is going to be going on in Chicago. Luckily for us, they are streaming the Socialism Conference, at least some of the sessions. So we're going to be watching a whole bunch of them all weekend. And I want to show you. You want an example of one socialist, one communist saying that abortion is a good thing? Let's go over to Haymarket Books YouTube channel, and we can look at the sessions that are scheduled for the Socialism 2024 conference. There's a whole bunch of them. One of the sessions that we're going to watch is, wait for it. Where is it? I know it's on here. I saw it the other day. Did they change the name on here? Okay, they didn't put the full name. I think it's this Dismantling Imperial Feminism one. Hang on. Socialism Conference. Hang on. I'm going to show you the full name. This is the Socialism Conference website. Virtual program. One example of socialists or communists embracing abortion. There it is. Dismantling Imperial Feminism with NYC for abortion rights. We will be watching a presentation at like the preeminent socialism conference this year where hundreds of radical revolutionary leftists are going to show up in Chicago. This is the one I went undercover at last year, where they will literally be streaming a presentation where they are pro-abortion. We're going to watch it on this channel. There's probably other presentations that are not going to be streamed where they are also pro-abortion. This isn't even a hard thing. Socialists and communists believe that abortion liberates women from the gender binary because it frees them from the obligation of doing the unpaid labor of raising the nuclear family, which is also the next generation of proletarian workers. It's very, very simple. Yeah, we're going to watch the Ruth Wilson Gilmore one too. Don't worry about it. I have literally been to a socialist conference where I went on a self-managed abortion tour. Look at this. You think that socialists don't promote fucking abortion? Please. I know we're getting off track a little bit, but like the first undercover thing I ever did was going to a socialist reproductive justice conference at Hampshire College where I literally went on a pro-abortion tour where I was taught how to get a self-managed bathroom abortion. You can find all this on my Substack. I'll put the link in the chat. People want to go see. There's that. The self-managed abortion tour was complete with an abortion doula. See? Abortion doula to help everyone having an abortion. It was also complete with an abortion shrine where after you took the self-managed bathroom abortion pills and bled your child into the toilet, with the help of the abortion doula, you go to worship yourself at the self-worship abortion shrine. I saw all this in person. So don't fucking tell me that socialists do not support abortion, because I literally went to a Shout Your Abortion, Celebrate Your Abortion fucking conference with radical revolutionary leftists a year and a half ago where I saw all this shit in person. That's all. Let's go back. I still get tweaked thinking about that experience. That was crazy.
Specifically what abortion
so
being
if you're
he's trying to say that I mentioned how there's
what years? That's all
abortion was legal in the Soviet Union up till 31 or 30. Okay. I forget exactly.
That's all I want to know the time so the audience understands.
So neutrality on an issue like abortion is in of itself an evil. Saying I'm neutral to the murder of others is in and of itself an evil.
Listen, I respect your opinion. I think there should be room for opinions like that, but it's not everyone's opinion. You know, for the world's majority. It's even in the strictest Islamic countries that have Sharia law, they still make exceptions where abortion can be allowed. Even in the most extreme religious conservative countries in the world, they don't ban every kind of instance of abortion. But regardless, I don't want to get into a debate about abortion.
But that wasn't what they were doing. They weren't like, oh, the mother's life is in jeopardy.
Yes. What did you think?
No, they were making an allowance for any case. Where a woman wanted to have one, they could have one.
They
had nothing to do with
read their moral codes. They had moral codes about how communists should behave, and they shouldn't be promiscuous. They shouldn't be sleeping around and doing whatever. They promoted morality. Shit. They weren't just telling everyone to. And so
Haas has not yet. You know what, Bot? You know what project we need to go back to? I know we always have like a million projects on our plate. We need to revisit the Queer Polyamorous Therapist Project, where there are hundreds of these people all over the country, the queer therapists, the queer psychoanalysts, where they actually teach people how to be in polyamorous relationships in order to queer the nuclear family so that they can have sex with as many people as they want. And I've covered a couple of the queer therapists on my Substack, but the queer therapists are crazy. It is like next level goddamn lunacy, but this is what they are. Like, we already talked earlier about how they want to destroy the nuclear family because destroying the nuclear family disrupts the production of capitalism because they believe that capitalism is reproduced in the nuclear family. So one of the ways they're doing that is by introducing the concept of polyamory. Polyamory is starting to get legal protections in some leftist cities to be in like polyamorous relationships with more than one person, to get employment benefits, to have non-discrimination, stuff like that. So they're trying to queer the nuclear family by basically making people in polyamorous relationships. And there are hundreds of these queer therapists all over the country that are specifically trying to teach people how to be in polyamorous relationships. And they usually have crazy hair, and they're usually non-binary, and they usually look exactly like you think they're going to look. I've covered some of them again on my Substack. They all have land blessings in their profiles. Yep. So again, Hawes doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. You want to tell me people aren't encouraged to have promiscuous sex under communism? Bullshit.
So the original point, though, is that we're talking about antisocial things like pornography and OnlyFans and prostitution, all these things. I
consider that to be an antisocial thing.
Right, but every communist state, you said, well, communists promote things like that. Every communist state totally cracked down, eliminated, and banned all of those things.
What? Which things?
Prostitution, pornography, all this sex industry in general.
Yeah, sure.
Hawes is saying that they banned the sex industry. Okay, let's do a fact check. Hang on. Fact check, please. And how we're going to do a fact check is we're going to go to a socialist YouTube channel. Hang on. I've got a couple of them in mind. First, let's just go to Haymarket Books. Haymarket Books is the largest seller of socialist books in the country. They are they're the evolved form of the International Socialist Organization after they had to technically disband after they had a Me Too scandal. Let's just go to Haymarket Books YouTube channel. And I want to just do a quick search for sex work. Sex work, policing, and border abolition. There was a literal presentation out at the Socialism 2023 conference. Sex work, policing, and border abolition. On political violence, fascist mobilization, they were talking about sex work in this one. We watched this one twice. Let's see. Transgender Marxism, that talks about sex work. Not a lot in the title, though. Okay, let's try something else. I want to try a specific bookstore. I always forget that. I think it's like Fireside Co-op, but I'll find it. Firestorm Books. Okay, Firestorm Books is a radical revolutionary socialist bookstore. They actually do a lot. Look, tarot to connect with revolutionary realities. It's communist tarot, guys. But I want to do a quick search again. Sex work. The radical imagination of sex workers. Stripped reading the erotic body. Feminists for patriarchy. We watched that one. That has sex work stuff in it. Gay liberation is going to talk about sex work. Let's just look up sex work in general. Let's just say sex work. We've already seen 2 socialist sites that literally have advocacy for sex work on them. Does anything cool come up? Decriminalize it. Well, that's a libertarian thing. Anyway, my Pussy, Power, and Patriarchy, A Brief History of America Hating Sex Workers. That's going to be socialist. Prostitution Can Save Marriages. That's going to be about queering the nuclear family. Hawes wants to say that socialists want to ban sex work. Bullshit. We just looked at presentations on far leftist sites where not only are they not talking about banning sex work, they're actually talking about advocacy for it. Which I personally don't care, by the way. Like, I don't care what people do with their body. It doesn't make a difference to me, but Hawes is just lying.
The kind of tightness which was around there, but so did fascist states. They did the exact same thing. Fascist states will also clamp down on moral degeneracy. This is not a point towards communism.
Fascist states, I would say fascist occupied countries were hypocrites. They would claim that, oh, we're against degeneracy, and they would target the degeneracy on a superficial level. But as far as the root causes of the degeneracy, they would leave a blind eye to it.
Yeah.
The Nazis, when they occupied Europe, they would establish institutionalized brothels where they would. I'm just telling you, they didn't eliminate prostitution.
Yeah, but you're moving the goalpost. Hang on. Saying, well, wait a second. They did the exact same thing that the communists did by outlawing it. They did. You're just making the claim, oh, they weren't going after the root, which is capitalism.
Right, so they didn't eliminate it.
You have failed to demonstrate, though, that capitalism itself was the root of the problem. And the thing is like, look, they cracked down on the same sorts of degeneracy inside of fascist states, and you don't need communism nor fascism to crack down on this. This type of degeneracy.
This is true enough. So socialists believe that all problems are created by capitalism. Again, that's private property ownership. So they literally do believe that capitalism creates the need, the quote unquote need for people to engage in sex work because they're engaging in sex work to literally survive under capitalism.
It comes from egalitarian principles. It comes from equality principles. It does not come from theological principles.
So
it
is communism egalitarian?
I think fundamentally it proposes egalitarianism.
So why were communists so severely against moral and cultural degeneracy then?
They're not.
Because I think it wasn't in the interest of the state to pursue those things. But I just gave you an instance where the ultimate degeneracy, which is murder in the womb, they definitely stayed completely neutral.
I think the sex industry is a much more fundamental evil than a case where some abortions are allowed.
I'd rather that there be prostitutions and dead babies.
I mean, again, I understand it's a contentious issue, and there's a lot of extremes. For example, the United States, liberal states had very extreme lax abortion law, right?
Great.
Where you can terminate at 8 months and 9 months.
California, New York.
Nowhere in the world was this. I mean, it's unthinkable in liberal Europe. It's unthinkable anywhere in the world. I don't think this is an egalitarian issue.
Then why do you
it's a
point
liberal
to states where they promote the most forms of egalitarianism they possibly can under the idea, even surpassing equality to equity, saying, okay, equality is not even enough, has to be equitable, right? Where now,
equity means
if your box isn't big enough, at the analogy you've heard this, right? The box isn't big enough, we have to build you a bigger box. You could look over the fence too.
Well, let me ask you a question. Why take them at face value? They say we want to have equity for all these oppressed minorities. Why take them at face value?
I don't take communists at face value.
Communists have results, and meanwhile, what Kamala Harris has is promising World War III, more funding for Israel, and more enriching of the capitalist class. But here's the issue, right? This talk of equity and stuff, how is it not clear that this is just a way to stem the majority working class populist currents in your country? If I'm constantly propping up my
guys, money is not going to exist in a future communist society, but like what you can trade sex for is stuff. You can trade sex for food. You can trade sex for supplies. So there's any number of reasons that sex work would exist under communism, even if money is completely eliminated, which is their ultimate goal.
Minorities as a political tool. It's not that I want everyone to be equal or it's about egalitarianism. It's just a political strategy to demoralize the working class majority.
You're absolutely right. But that being said, I can concede the point that this type of class warfare is being utilized on purpose to create division among individual people. You and I both agree that that's true. Okay. There's no dispute there. But saying that communism, the answer to this is to strip autonomous property rights, period, right? Which is basically what your position reduces to.
Correct,
Seems like
Andrew.
You're really throwing the baby out with the bathwater here.
I want to draw from the spirit of the Communist Manifesto, which is like, we don't want to strip the autonomous property rights of the individual because capitalism has already done this. Capitalism has enslaved and
Bro. Communist Manifesto. Fact fucking check, Haas. Fact fucking check. Hang on. I have to find the specific part where it says it. Hang on. Oh, God. This is not convenient for me to search. Hang on. Stand by. Here it is. Found it. This is the Communist Manifesto. I will fact check this asshole in real time. This is the Communist Manifesto. In this sense, the theory of communists may be summed up in this single sentence: the abolition of private property. I don't know how it can get more clear. This is like chapter 2 of the Communist Manifesto. The distinguishing feature of communism is not the abolition of property generally, but the abolition of bourgeois property. That means your home, your land, your business, your intellectual property, your parental rights, your individual liberties. But modern bourgeois private property is the final and most complete expression of the systems producing and appropriating products that is based on class antagonisms, on the exploitation of the many by the few. This is all about private property ownership. When it says here is of like not the abolition of property generally, that's the distinction we talked about earlier that they always try to say. We don't want to take your stuff. We don't want to take your property. We just want to take the bourgeois capitalist property. But what they mean by the bourgeois capitalist property is your home, your land, your apartments that you rent out as a landlord, your businesses, your individual liberties, your parental rights, your intellectual property. Bullshit, Haas. Bullshit. Yes. Sir, have you actually read the Communist Manifesto? Because we've read the Communist Manifesto. It's a really quick read. Everyone should read it.
That being said, I can concede the point that this type of class warfare is being utilized on purpose to create division among individual people. You and I both agree that that's true. Okay, there's no dispute there. But saying that communism, the answer to this is to strip autonomous property rights, period, right? Which is basically what your position reduces to. Seems like you're really throwing the baby out with the bathwater here.
I want to draw from the spirit of the Communist Manifesto, which is like, we don't want to strip the autonomous property rights of the individual because capitalism has already done this. Capitalism has enslaved and immiserated this entire nation with debt such that even business owners, and this is the quintessential example that we're told of free enterprise, majority of them are in debt. They don't own everything. They're in debt. They have to pay mortgages. They have to pay interest.
Listen, you don't own your business anyway. You don't own your business. The creditors own your business. Therefore, is it really any better than if you had no business at all?
On the loans that they took out. And how many of them are actually profitable? Even the biggest corporations in this country are in debt. They are not autonomous. Even the largest, most, you name them, Starbucks, McDonald's, whatever, they all are in debt. And it's ultimately the bankers and the financial institutions that control everything.
In debt. They get obscene profits and they report that they have a lot of debt, so they don't have to pay taxes.
That's true.
That's true.
That's only true for the industries that collateralize.
That's most industries.
No. The industries that collateralize the loans that creditors give out. This is oil. This is energy. And on that count, you're right. This is what the oil industry does.
Force doctrine, right? Who gives a shit how much debt you have when you have the most powerful military on planet Earth with a navy that can say, "Oh, we'll just blow you up, fucker."
But who owns that military?
The United States government owns it and deploys it.
But if the government is in debt and 50% of my income taxes are going to servicing the interest on the national debt, then our government is clearly occupied and controlled by the private interest.
By who?
By the private interest.
And who are they?
The international financial institutions, the bankers.
And who owns them?
That's the thing. There's no.
Hey guys, we've been streaming for a little while now, and I noticed that our super chat goal has not yet been reached. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to stream this for a little bit more. I will stick around and watch more of this with you guys if we can get a little bit closer to meeting that super chat goal. if we don't meet that super chat goal, if we don't make any progress towards meeting that super chat goal, then I'm probably going to cut this out a little bit early and go get dinner. So it's entirely up to you guys how much more of this we watch. I will give, maybe like a couple minutes just to see if anyone ponies up and helps meet that super chat goal for me. Otherwise, we've already streamed for 2 hours, and that's quite a bit. And so you've already gotten a lot of analysis for free today. So if you can send in $5 if you appreciate the stream going, $10, whatever, help me get closer to the goal, I would really appreciate it. How much we watch will depend entirely on you guys.
Individual that owns it. It's an institution that is set aside and is the basis, the purport of this institution. If you had to give a
representation between a people group of who owns most of these banking institutions, who would it be?
You think it's the Jews?
I'm asking you.
I don't think it is. I've looked up the numbers. I've looked up the names. I've studied this. I've had my people study it. We do not find any case where the ruling capitalist class is majority Jewish. Now, is there overrepresentation relative to their population? Of course, yes.
Is that because though, Haz?
But there is no one ethnic group or ethnic or religious group.
I want to make sure I'm totally clear here. Yeah. But, okay, real quick. I just want to make sure I'm completely clear here.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that you're not being biased. Because Bolshevikism, which you believe in, big C communism, was conducted, orchestrated, and executed by Jews.
Well, they were on both sides, though. They were on both sides. So, I guess let's see where they go with this.
No, it wasn't.
It was.
Yes, it was.
I mean, okay. Well, if it was conducted and orchestrated by Jews, why is it that only for 2 years, and not even 2 years, just like a specific months within a year, was the Politburo even half Jewish? For the overwhelming majority of the existence of the party, Jews were a minority at every level and at every rank of a position you can have.
So when you take a whole, take a whole of an organization,
right?
You can have people who overrepresent different key positions inside of an organization. If they overrepresent these key positions, they're still in positions of authority.
Overrepresentation doesn't imply control.
Hey,
that's just relative to your population.
It's true unless we have the positions of which they're in control. So,
such as which?
So for instance, inside of a bank, right?
Yeah.
You would look at who are the policy makers.
Yeah.
Inside of government, you would look at the same thing. Who are the people who actually?
So in the Bolshevik Party, who controlled everything in the Bolshevik Party then?
Who? You tell me.
It wasn't Jews.
Well, who was it?
Well, okay, we have Stalin as the general secretary. He's not a Jew. The only the major Jew is Lazar Kaganovich, who's the commissar of transportation. Okay, so that doesn't sound like having an office or an administrative position where you're like controlling everything or controlling everyone. All the main positions of executive control. I mean, for a few years, you had an NKVD chief who was Jewish. That was Yagoda, right?
What about
after Yagoda, he gets purged, he gets shot. So clearly he wasn't the boss. Lenin wasn't Jewish.
Okay, what about Trotsky?
Trotsky was killed, okay, and he was kicked out in 1926. He wasn't even a Bolshevik.
Was he Jewish?
Trotsky was a Jew, but he was not a Bolshevik.
The thought leaders, right?
He's not a thought leader.
The thought leader.
Haz is arguing that Trotsky wasn't a Bolshevik. That's because Haz is a Stalinist, and Stalinists don't like Trotskyists.
Yeah,
definitely. We're Jewish.
Nope.
Yes.
Nope.
Yeah, I can give you a list.
I'll explain. Give me the list. I'll explain the history to you.
Okay.
Trotsky, the Bolshevik Party existed for decades. Understand? That was Lenin. That was Stalin. These were the OG Bolsheviks. They were a group that stuck together, right? Trotsky was never part of this group. Trotsky latched onto the revolution at the last moment in 1917, and because of his pledging of support and enthusiasm, the Bolsheviks let this guy in. Okay, now when all is said and done, the Civil War is over. Trotsky is trying to usurp power from the Bolsheviks. Stalin has to come and say, "You're not one of us. You weren't an OG. You weren't there with us in the very beginning." So Trotsky wasn't a Bolshevik, and he was kicked out in 1926, shortly after the state itself was created. So to say that Trotsky was a thought leader of the Bolsheviks, A, he's not even really a Bolshevik. B, he wasn't in all a significant influence on the formation of the Soviet state because he was kicked out in 1926.
Okay. Let me concede the point that it wasn't. And then we'll fast forward to modernity when you're trying to talk about these issues which communism is going to solve. When you're asking about the same thing, who is in these key points? Who is in these key demographics? Who? Who
in terms of their ethnicity, or what do you mean?
Well, I'm asking
the capitalist class.
Yeah. So Who's in control of the means of production of information? Let's start with that.
The banks. It's really going to come down to the financial institutions.
Let's talk about the media itself.
Banks?
Same thing.
Okay.
There is
there any overrepresentation?
Yeah. Look, there's so many different groups with overrepresentation, though. Episcopalians have overrepresentation. As a matter of fact.
Yeah, but if you look at a percentage which is narrow, the narrower the percentage gets, the more the overrepresentation becomes.
The reason I'm hesitant to focus that it's the Jews, because the majority of Jews
say that.
Yeah, but the majority of the Jews are not in power, and the majority of the people in power are not Jews. Now, if there's a relationship of overrepresentation relative to their population,
what I will say is that, hey, thanks, Raven's Poetry. I appreciate the beer money. See, guys, see how much closer we are to the goal now. That makes me so happy. Thank you, guys. So now what I will say is that where I would agree with Hawes is that I track the real revolutionary socialist activists, like to the person, to the organization. Most of them are Jewish. Like the real ones in the real world. Most of them are not Jewish. Like that's just reality. I know that's not what people want to hear. We can have discussions about where these ideas come from. We can have discussions about who was instrumental in the development of Marxist thought. But when you look at the real leftist revolutionary activists, the real ones in the real world that are going to the protests, that are writing the books, that are doing the speaking tours, that are pushing all of this stuff into schools, most of them are not Jewish, and that's just reality. You can make arguments about where some of the funding comes from in terms of like award money that our authors get or grant money. You can also look at the opposite of that and notice that there are absolutely very prominent Jewish people who are funding opposition to the radical revolutionary far left. But I just want to hint us into reality on that one. Like for anyone who thinks that all socialism is controlled by the Jews, all socialists are Jews, that's just not true. That's not backed up by the evidence. We can have discussions about historical development and that sort of thing, but that's reality. Hey, thanks Daniel or Dylan for the super sticker. I do appreciate it.
That's fine. We could talk about that and what the causes of that are. But that overrepresentation doesn't prove they control it. It just proves that they're overrepresented. That's it.
Yeah. But so what would be the proof that you control a thing?
The proof, it's in the very nature by which your power over the thing is executed, and it's all superficial.
Right.
There's a there's a capitalist system in which all of the wealth.
Super clear. Yeah. We need to be super clear.
Yeah.
I need to know.
Yeah.
How do I know if you're in charge of a thing? How do I know that?
You will know them by their fruits.
Right. You know them by their fruits. Right. Okay. So all we need is critical positions. That's it.
Okay.
The critical position, the decision making, this type of thing.
Okay.
That's how you know.
And the only consistent variable, the only consistent variable as far as how power has been executed and has been used, right? Let's just talk about the last 50 years, is to enrich the capitalist class. That's the only constant variable. Is it to enrich the Jews? Well, why are there all these poor Jews in New York that are dirt poor, that have literally nothing, that are Orthodox Jews? Why are they literally broke, you know? Why are there so many Jews that are broke? It's clearly not for the benefit. By the way, nothing has been a bigger disaster for the Jews, if you ask me, than Israel itself. Okay, the Zionist project has been a total failure and a big disaster. In whose interest was the Zionist project?
But hang on, let's move back a little bit.
Yeah.
What the fuck would there's some poor Jews in New York have to do with anything that we're talking about when it comes to the only
consistent variable, know them by their fruits, enriching the ruling financial class. That's the only consistent variable.
Okay, so you can have poor people who are in New York who are whatever ethnicity.
Yeah.
I still don't understand what that would have to do if you have an overrepresentation of certain groups in keyed in positions.
I mean, how are they living in New York if they're broke? Is a question I would ask. I mean, maybe it's a dumb question, but like my perception of like living in Brooklyn is it's pretty goddamn expensive. So how are they living there if they're broke?
Well, what are they doing in those positions on behalf of whose interests? What are they using their power to do, to fulfill?
To enrich themselves.
This is when Hawes gets
there. You go.
Yeah.
So that's the capitalist class. It doesn't matter if they're Jewish. It doesn't matter if
I
they're...
don't believe that if you were a communist that you couldn't do the exact same thing, that you couldn't enrich yourself.
Show the examples, though.
Of communists enriching themselves?
Yes.
Did Stalin die poor?
Absolutely. He died with nothing. He died with a pipe. He died with his shirt and his suit, and I think he had one small cabin in the woods somewhere, and that's all he had. Look it up.
Okay.
He had nothing. He had no bank accounts. He had no wealth. He literally had nothing.
He could just get whatever the hell he wanted when he wanted it.
What evidence is there that Stalin was living a luxurious life? Even Khrushchev in his memoirs, Khrushchev would complain and say, Stalin, he's so hard on us. This is in the 1930s. He makes us eat porridge every night. We're never able to eat nice food. He makes us live austere, ascetic lives. This is the nature and character of Stalin.
So what? So he makes you eat porridge? This somehow means that he doesn't have complete and total unilateral control of the state. He clearly did.
Where is the proof that he is using power to aggrandize himself and luxuriously?
You mean the proof that Stalin is what? He's utilizing the state's resources to enrich himself?
Yeah, where's the proof?
Yeah, he's in charge of the state. Could he have whatever he wants when he wants it?
Stalin is someone who fully put himself in the service of his country and his people. Fully. Not even 1% was dedicated to himself. Where is the evidence of that 1%?
Come on.
I'm trying to be clear here.
Yeah.
What is it that you're asking me? Was Stalin not the head of the state of Russia?
Yes. He was. Yes.
Could Stalin get whatever the hell he wanted whenever he wanted it?
Could he? I mean, could he abuse his powers? You're saying maybe, but had he abused his power, there would have been consequences.
When you're in a position of total unilateral control, whatever your preferences are, he
didn't. Even the CIA released a memo in the 1950s that said it's a big myth that Stalin has total control. He doesn't. He's accountable to his party. He's actually accountable to his party.
He's accountable.
Unless you wanted to kill him.
He could only kill people in the party if he had a consensus of the party. That's the thing. It's not just that Stalin didn't like this guy, he had him killed. It's a big nonsense myth.
So Stalin, who is the unilateral leader, you're saying, okay, so would you say that Kim Jong-un or Kim Jong-il, same thing?
The problem is we have an information blackout because all we get from North Korea are bullshit stories like Yenmi Park and all. We have an information blackout. The reason we know as much as we know about Stalin's Soviet Union right now is because when the Soviet Union collapsed, the archives opened up. So we can actually look and see about how it was working and what was going on. We have CIA stuff that was leaked, all this kind of stuff. North Korea.
I want to visit North Korea so badly. Does anyone else want to visit North Korea? I know we can't. There was a time when we could, back when I was marathoning, back when I was a lot thinner and more active than I am now. I was running marathons and I was this close. We could still travel to North Korea. I was this close to going and running in the Pyongyang marathon because you could actually get a tourist visa to go and run in the marathon. And I was like, that would be what a trip. I want to go to North Korea so bad. I know it's very expensive, but it's like one of those things where it's like, I want to see it. I want to experience it. I don't know. I want to see what's going on.
There's not a lot of information, and the only information we do seem to be getting is bullshit,
Yeah, but so let's move back again. When you're talking about North Korea, you say, okay, there's an information
block. See, the problem is, if I went to North Korea, I'd probably try to pull something like, taking a poster home with me or something, and I'd end up in a forced labor camp for the rest of my life because I tried to take a North Korea propaganda poster home with me as a souvenir.
Blackout. What I'm asking you specifically, though, you say Stalin has never used his position of power to enrich himself. Where's the evidence of that?
Yeah.
So when he's in service to the people, what is he doing as part of this service? What is it?
Leading them. He does what a leader does.
Doing what?
What do you think a leader does on their day-to-day tasks?
What is Stalin doing here as the position of leader?
He is attending to the and overseeing the business of the state, making sure that the 5-year plans are being executed correctly, attending and he's literally reading the letters of ordinary people that are being sent on a regular basis to him. He's actually reading these things and replying. He's overseeing the people that are under him, making sure that they're doing their job. He's consulting with all the different departments of the state in order to make sure that everything, this is what leaders do.
How many people died under his reign due to the massive famine which was caused
the one in 32-33,
Yeah.
where there was a combination of one of the biggest droughts in their history, and there is proof that the kulak class was destroying and burning grain
Stalin
as a
did
form of
nothing
political
wrong,
resistance.
guys.
that they were trying to reallocate and redistribute these supplies, and they were literally putting them in grain houses and in storage units and things like this. They were rotting away because they were trying to distribute equally
The
these
famine,
types of
listen,
supplies.
the famine was a disaster, but let's actually place things.
Actually, let's do this in AI in real time. Real time fact check of Haas. Hang on, let me get my Twitter up. Let me get my Grok up. Human Centipede says Joseph Stalin was worth $7.5 trillion at the time of his death. Let me go into AI. Grok. How much was Stalin worth at the time of his death? Question mark. Let's see what Grok has to say about this. Okay, so personal assets. At the time of his death, Stalin's personal effects were modest. He let Haas actually got this right. He left behind items like a clothing, a pipe, and a teacup, and only about $250 in his bank account. However, control over state wealth. While Stalin did not have personal wealth in the billions or trillions in today's terms, he had control over the Soviet Union's resources and economy was absolute. This control could be metaphorically equated to immense wealth because he had access to and could direct the use of USSR's assets, which were considerable. Some sources of analysis looking at his control over the Soviet economy have speculated on his net worth if one were to consider the state assets as his own, leading to figures like $7.5 trillion in today's money. So there you go.
Things into context.
Sure. Real quick, guys.
Yeah.
We've been going 35 minutes on this topic, and I didn't want to stop anything because you guys were going. But you know what we'll do? We'll take a quick break, and then I'll read some chats, and then we'll go back into this, and we'll talk about the famine and stuff.
Sure.
No break. No.
Rumble's-
Fast forward. Fast forward. No one cares.
Of growing food. Okay, bro. Can you guys fresh updates?
We're not, because I'll.
Cool. So we will go ahead and
Continue.
Turn it back. Do you guys need anything to drink or anything? Bathroom break? anything quick
I'm
like
good.
that?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
Cool.
Zoom call.
Yeah,
Tesla Club
I'm ready to keep
coming
going.
soon.
Yeah. We're gonna. Cool. And should I put any? You guys just want to keep going free dialogue, or you want to put a timer on the
I'd
clock?
like to
I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it.
Okay,
So
free dialogue's okay with you guys.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
because you guys are actually like respectful, and you guys are
Yeah,
able to
no
answer each
problem.
other questions and keep going.
I do want to get into and I've been kind of fleshing this out, pulling out the dialogue so I understand exactly what your position is. I'd finally like to get into the moral position of communism.
But not the famine, because I kind of want to.
Yeah, we can get to that.
Yeah.
But can we start with the moral position of communism, and then we can dive into the famine portion?
Yeah. That's where we left off was the famine, but wherever you guys want to start.
Yeah, I'm cool with the moral stuff.
Moral
I
first,
just want to want to make sure that we don't bypass it because it's an elongated conversation.
Sure. I'm gonna start the timer anyway, just so I know it. But you guys go ahead, take it away.
Yeah. So my biggest issue here is the reconciliation. So I'll concede a few points. There's no doubt that Haas knows far more about communism and communist history than me. He should, right? He's not an orthodox apologist, for instance, nor. So I expect that he knows inside of his domain more than I do about X thing. But it still has to, from his view, logically add up to two things. One, the practical application, which I can concede even there could be some practicality to communism. But I need to know the moral implication.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we're diving into, is the moral implication. And I need to know what you're basing this on other than your own intuition. And if there is something external to your own intuition, and why we should follow it. I would say, and I'm gonna posit this, that people themselves need to have something which is higher than them to move towards. I think that you would say the same thing with the state, right? But
history,
when it comes to decadence, right? How's communism preventing this except with the barrel of a gun versus argumentation and the ethics around argumentation that you find from religion and theology? And I'd like to dive into the moral discussion of that.
I think, it's a good question. I think that, I reject the separation of morality from the other spheres of this, the division of labor, so to speak. I think that a human existence, inclusive of its economic reality, inclusive of its social and political reality, and its historical reality, is infused with the moral. The moral has significance for every historical era, for every historical situation we find ourselves in. So, for example, we don't have to get into the conflict itself, but just an example, you can agree. I think, for example, the question of morality for a Palestinian, it's not a question of propositional logic. It's not a question of reasoning. It is based in a concrete historical circumstance in which their people are being occupied by a foreign aggressor. And it is, yes, maybe it's a matter of intuition, but it's the clear moral path, which is to resist, right? So history is riddled with situations like this. I would argue that every instance of the emergence of prophets, biblical prophets historically, they're giving people a message, but the message is not being justified to them on the basis of propositional logic. It's not being justified on the basis
I'm
of
not asking for
a rational authority.
I'm not asking
it
for
makes sense in the time that it's in, and people heed the call because they receive it as something that's making sense of the injustice of the era they're living in.
There's many things here which would make sense even in this situation, which could be superior to picking a side. For instance, why do I care if Jews and Palestinians kill each other? Fuck them, right? What do I care?
Yeah, but if you were a Palestinian, you would regard it as the moral thing to resist.
Or if I was a Jew, I would regard it as the moral thing to exterminate the Palestinian, right?
But what kind of morals would you have? I think as Stalin...
But this is why I'm asking for kind of the epistemology here. And I'm not asking for anything too precise, right? Kind of the general idea. I don't actually understand what the moral proposition of communism is, and Hegel certainly is not offering one.
Okay.
So what is it? What is the morality of communism?
Equity.
I don't want to. I'm not dodging the question. This is a direct response.
You are dodging
Putin said that the moral code for communist builders was a document the Communist Party of the Soviet Union released precisely to answer this question. He says it's the same thing as the Bible. It's the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
Well, in my view, the morality of the communists is not a morality separated from the one that is actually ingratiated and is based in the historical existence of the people through the Bible, through the Quran, through the Confucianism in China, for example.
The communism doesn't killing the Christians. They weren't elevating them.
Communism, we can get into that, but communism doesn't propose creating a morality from scratch. We regard the real moral sensibilities of the people as they actually exist. As
the elimination of the hierarchy is the moral compass of communism. They want to eliminate disparities in wealth. That is what's going on. They do not want people to have more resources than other people. That is what equity is. Everyone has access to all the resources. Everyone is equally rich and equally poor. It eliminates the hierarchy. It eliminates social class. That's what it is.
They've been inherited and passed down by generations.
What are those moral? Like, what is the moral thing we should be moving towards?
We are no longer. That question is a descriptive question. It's not a propositional one. It's not what should it be. It's what is it. It's a question of analysis. So, for example, we can say the morality. It's also a question of the analysis.
Hang on. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut in. I want to clarify though. Yeah, there's a descriptor, that's true, but we're looking at an is and an ought here all the same. So you say, okay, we can adopt to the description of whatever the morality is. Clearly, you're not going to adopt the prescription of the morality of like putting someone on a pyramid, cutting out their heart, holding it up to the sun god. You would say, no, we're not doing that.
But human beings did do that for a long period.
Hang on. I've let you spam my chat for a little bit now, and now I want it to stop. I don't want any more spamming of my chat with things that are unrelated to what's being discussed.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean communism would endorse that.
No, absolutely not.
It's moving towards some
because communism is not something that is separating itself from the development of history. It's the culmination of history. We're not here to reject the Bible and reject the religious traditions of the people.
Then what is your grounding to say you can't take them on top of pyramids and cut their hearts out?
why does there need to be a grounding for that? Why does there need to be and by grounding, by the way, you're talking about propositional logic. You're talking about something that is basically the self-consistency of a concept.
Well, we do need to know
I regard that, but I regard that as an impossible.
Why we're moving towards something.
The foundation of morality does not lie in logic. The foundation of morality lies in existence. It lies in the real existence of people struggling to make sense of that existence in relation not only to themselves, but toward others and toward the natural world.
Oz, let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes, I will agree that there's something far more expressive about what morality is than propositional logic or logic of any kind can really ever express. The external that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But you should still be able to give me a general idea of what it is communism, the moral descriptions of communism are moving towards. So in Christianity, for instance, let me give you the example. Inside of your worldview, isn't it true that you believe that it's material conditions, right, which set what men will do, not some sort of ontology, which is the man, which sets what they will do?
Materialism is not about a single directional cause and effect. What man is doing is a material reality. It's not that the material reality is the cause of his actions. The context by which his actions are suspended in a way that reproduces his real existence is a material existence.
So how do you win? So if this was a video game called Communism, the game, what's the win condition?
What do you mean?
The elimination of all disparity.
Let's say you have World of Warcraft. It's going to have its own economy. It's going to have its own. It's going to have its own player base. It's going to have its own everything, right? It's not reality, but it's like a demi-reflection of reality, right? So inside of the game, there's going to be a victory condition, right? The victory condition is, kill this bad guy, right? You beat the game.
Okay.
So what is communism's answer to beating the game? So the Christian answer is theosis. That's how you win. You beat the game. You become more like Christ. You enter into theosis. This is our objective. What does that actually? Hang on. This is what we're moving towards. This is what we want.
The abolition of private
property. That's
the
victory condition.
Equity.
What's the victory condition side of communism? What is it?
Abolition of private property.
Thing that we're moving towards, so we know we beat the game.
Broadly, I would say the overall.
Before he answers, hang on. This is so simple. Andrew's actually doing not a bad job, I have to say. I'm somewhat impressed with Andrew's presentation. Andrew doesn't understand everything, but he's doing okay. In a single sense, the theory of communists may be summed up in one single sentence: the abolition of private property. This is not hard. Why can't Haas just say this? He knows this document. He's read this document. He understands it. Haas is refusing to say it because all Haas wants to do is deflect. Adrian, hey, thanks for the super chat. Communism is arguing universal morality through equity, but ironically through denying the people the moral principles such as individual. That's exactly right. The elimination of private property is going to create a society based on equity. Equity cannot be achieved when private property ownership still exists. So the universal morality for communism is the abolition of private property for the sake of equity. Does everyone understand that? There we go.
Overall development of the productive forces and the prosperity and well-being of mankind.
And how do we know that that is the moral thing to move towards?
Probably in terms of population growth and the growth of wealth.
So the growth of wealth.
The growth of wealth and the growth of human beings.
For the nation or for the individual?
For the people, not just for the individual. Of course, not just for the individual.
And how is it that you, Haas, describe what is a wealthy person? What is wealth to an individual? Is it money? Is that what you're talking about? Material conditions?
I think it can be recorded objectively. I mean, you by wealth, I'm not just talking about luxury. I'm talking about the necessities of people to exist. So the growth of a population, for example, can clearly be an indication that there's an expansion of wealth.
It can be, but the poorest people also populate the most now.
and they could not survive relative to
they survive better and often than the rich who abort their kids, and the middle class who abort their kids.
But if it was not for at least a relative degree of the expansion of the overall productive forces and material wealth, they would not be able to survive.
The poor seem to survive better than the rich do.
Then why weren't
the rich don't reproduce?
Then why weren't there 8 billion people in 1800?
Well, so you have, and by the way, we're about to go way less than 8 billion people now.
Sure.
And there's never been more
wealth. But in 1800,
hang on. There's never been more wealth produced.
I agree.
On planet Earth.
But
so hang on.
In 1800, we couldn't support that amount.
Hang on. Let me ask the question. Yeah. You have just contradicted yourself. How could it possibly be that we have now produced more wealth on planet Earth than ever before, but we're moving into a birth rate crisis like we've never seen before? There's no possible way that we're going to be able to reproduce at 8 billion long term.
That's fine.
No projection.
But in 1800, 8 billion people could not exist on Earth because the material wealth and the productive forces and technology wasn't advance to a sufficient degree to support them.
There's also an issue of it takes X amount of generations to reproduce X amount of people. We don't know exactly when the starting point was.
How long do you think human beings have been around?
I don't know. Neither do you.
No, I don't. I'm just saying, like, do you think it's at least?
I have no idea.
Is it at least thousands of years?
Yeah, thousands. Sure.
Okay, so there's thousands of years. Okay, and we can clearly. Do you think that we're recording the population accurately, or maybe like in ancient Egypt there was like billions of people? Just so, because I
don't think there was billions of people in ancient Egypt, but that makes my point, not yours.
This is why I've always hated this debate bro bullshit, because it's like all of these discussions are more about debate tactics than they are about actually having a discussion. There's no this discussion is not about what is the truth. What are we even talking about? What are the definitions? How do you look at the world? How do I look at the world? How are these things compatible? How are these things not compatible? It's only about how many ways can I deflect from answering a question so that I still look smart? How many ways can I own the other guy? How many gotchas can I get? And it's just like, it drives me insane that this is the type of stuff that influences the dialogue in our culture right now, and you wonder why everything is as fucked up as it is, and you wonder why people are outrage addicted, and you wonder why we can't actually accomplish anything, and there are no real goals, because having a real goal, having a real conversation is not the goal of what this is. This is a dick measuring contest. That's all it is.
I think that there's a clear case in which we can see the expansion of the growth of the population globally, corresponds, at least if it's not absolute, it's a rough general tendency that this is because of the expansion.
But that doesn't, hang on, I'm not going to let you evade this. You didn't really answer the question of how you reconcile this contradiction of saying, well, wait a second, it really takes a lot of wealth for this expansion to happen. And then you say we're creating more wealth than we ever have before, but this expansion of population is not happening. In fact, it's going the other way.
Well, okay, I think there's two different arguments. I'm not necessarily saying that growing wealth will inevitably, under all circumstances, expand the population. I'm just saying
because materialism is not.
Hold on, that's not. I'm saying it's a necessary prerequisite for it to be possible, though.
I'm saying that.
If you don't have,
so I think that the people being born itself,
people need to eat. They need to eat,
but necessarily additional labor is going to create additional food. That's what the population bomb was all about. The population bomb had the same ideology that you do. Oh, hey, there's too many fucking people. Too many mouths to feed.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I don't know. Listen. I'm actually saying we should have more people on Earth. Okay.
Yeah.
My point, though, is that in order to have more people, you need to be able to support them through developing the productive forces.
Yeah, but just having more people is going to necessarily do that. It necessarily adds to labor.
Even if that's, well, even if we, I don't know if that's exactly true. I think
how could it not be true?
Because increasing the because it's not just labor, because there's finite resources, but when you increase the methods of production with the same amount of resources, you can actually yield more.
That's going to require labor.
Yeah, but labor alone is not enough, I think. I think it's clear that...
What else could... I mean, the resources are everywhere.
Here's the problem, right? We have a steady rate of population growth for thousands and thousands of years, right? Thousands and thousands of years, right? So if it's...
in some areas, yeah.
Okay, and then in the last 200 years, it's like, wow, it's like all the way going up.
The last 200 years, it's gone the opposite. So from the year 1800 to right now, I can pull up a graph right now and show you. It's literally done this. The birth rates have dropped and dove out like nothing you can even imagine.
The population has decreased significantly in the last 200 years?
It's going to. So you're going to see the zenith of this.
But I'm not talking about what it's going to. I'm talking about what has happened as a consequence of the Industrial Revolution.
The birth rates in the West have sunk like this, even though they're producing the most material wealth. Because we utilize immigration coming in to bolster our numbers doesn't mean shit. We're bringing in to the tune of 1 million immigrants per year.
Let's say I concede the point that in the foreseeable future, the population numbers we have now are not going to be sustainable. What does that have to do with the fact that the only real, how do you explain why in such a rapid period of time the population has grown in as significantly as it has?
Because it had land to expand. Because of land to expand. So for instance, let's take the United States, for instance.
But why population density has nothing to do with it, because most of the land on Earth is not dense, populated densely.
So you can expand into it. So technology assists.
There's never been a deficiency of land.
Technology assists with that, yes, but you have to have people. People are the ones who drive technology. But there has never been,
there was not a shortage of land 3,000 years ago.
There was a shortage of people.
Every single human being can fit in Texas with a homestead. There's not a shortage of land on Earth.
There was a shortage of people.
Why was that?
Because you have to hit a zenith snowball effect forward for reproduction, just like you have to hit. I'm going to explain it, Oz. Give me a second.
What causes that, though?
I'm going to explain it. There can be a multitude of different things which can cause this. There can be religious puritanism that can assist with reducing population. Hang on. There can also be wars which assist with negating population, and there can be a lack of expansion. But what I'm saying is that you have to have X amount of people constantly reproducing. Everybody has to be able to replace at least themselves and somebody else, right? You have to be able to replace at least you.
Why?
Most people were not even able to do that.
I just want to clearly understand something. Mm-hmm. You agree that we've been around for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So for a short period of that time, the population has exploded, yes?
Well, it's all throughout history. There's been times.
It hasn't been a steady rate of growth. You can look at the chart.
I didn't say it
within a short period of time relative to when we've existed in general on Earth.
Multiple times.
Is this what I'm saying? Like, do you think that there was a point in human history before where there were this many people, or what?
I'm not saying that, but that doesn't logically make sense.
I think that it's clear
that not logic. That doesn't logically make sense.
The main cause of population growth, okay, as far as the modern period, has been the development of the productive forces and industrialization. I think that's pretty obvious.
I'm not disputing that technology has assisted with this. What I'm saying is that the thing which makes the technology possible is the people element. It's the human element.
Yep. Humans have been around for thousands of years. Why is it only until recently?
You still have to have X amount of numbers who can run the production of this technology in order to continue this bloodline going. You have to have that.
But why is it only recently that the population exploded?
It's not recent. There's been many times in history where there's been explosions of population.
Relative to the 8 billion people that are on Earth right now, yes, it was recent.
No, okay, but you know what else?
If in 4,000 BC,
when you're eliminating half of your population, like you're doing in China, where you go, oh, we have too many people, we're just going to start drowning them, right?
When did they do that?
You can curtail the one-child policy in China.
Yeah, how did they eliminate half of their population though?
They're slated by 2050 to have eliminated half of the population via birth rate.
I've seen different statistics on that, so I'm not going to really get into it.
I just want to point out that if Andrew Wilson watched Socialism Saturday, then Andrew Wilson would have been armed to go into this debate with a clip of real socialist activists about a month ago talking about how capitalism is a literal death machine and about how they need to control for population growth because under communism, they're just not going to be able to feed everyone under the current system. And so they really need to think about population growth. Capitalism doesn't need to control for population growth because capitalism is a death machine that will just kill people off. But under communism, they need to think about these things because the state controls the food supply. And that means that they don't control for population growth. They can't feed everyone. And we literally got a clip of them saying this like 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. I'm just saying that if Andrew Wilson had watched that clip or had watched that Socialism Saturday, he would be much better armed with information to come in and take on Hawes's argument, but can't force people to learn.
to it. But
I think we need to get into it. By 2050, 2060.
I've seen by 2100 it's going to decrease to 1 billion. I've seen that. I haven't seen the extreme numbers that you're talking about anywhere.
They're slated. Okay.
2050, half the population. That's
crazy. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
In South Korea right now, do you know what the birth rate is?
Low. Very low.
Do you know what it is?
Not exactly.
It's 0.7.
Yeah.
And it's slated to go to 0.5.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that culture doomed, Haas?
It's a crisis. It's an existential crisis.
Yeah, it's doomed.
If they don't find a way to fix it, then yeah.
Well, could you hit the point of no return, where in just one generation you just don't have? I think.
Look, I want to get back to this point though.
In this point.
Wait. I want to get back to this.
In the point. Hang on.
Yeah,
we'll get back to it, but I need to finish my inquiry here.
Yeah.
Okay. That they're doomed. If you get underneath a certain threshold in your birth rates, your population is doomed.
I actually think Andrew's doing quite well, but he's continuing. Andrew is not doing bad. Where he could improve is that he is continuing to allow Haas to deflect from what he's saying, and basically Haas is like running around him in a circle, and he's just like ignoring what Andrew's trying to say. And Andrew, because he started off this debate saying, Haas, can we just have a straight spoken debate? They're going like this, where Andrew's like really trying to nail Haas down on these things. And Haas is like, no, bitch, I'm just going to keep running around you. Thanks for the super chat. Appreciate it.
Listen, Andrew, I am ready to accept that.
Okay.
But we need to get back to the point, which is that if you don't expand the material wealth through modern industrialization and so on, it's not even possible to expand
but I think the
population.
Human element is what.
But humans have been around for thousands of years. So why is it only recently that it exploded?
I don't understand why
it exploded to 8 billion people only recently. Okay. For thousands of years, we have never gotten the rate of growth that we have since the rise of industrialization.
Aircraft travel and mass land travel and steamboats and steam engines.
And I wonder what contributes to the possibility of these things. It's the expansion of the productive forces.
All it takes is one technological marvel to open up possibilities. It's like, for instance, okay, if we invented a spaceship that took us to Mars tomorrow, okay, and we could have viable life on Mars, do you think the population of Mars would fucking explode?
Okay, so you agree it's technology, then,
answer
right?
my question.
If we had a spaceship to go to Mars,
a spaceship that would go to Mars, and you landed on Mars, right? Would the population there on Mars explode?
Sure,
absolutely, it would, right?
Yeah.
So you can have one technological marvel,
but we can't even do that,
which can complete this. But
so, what are the factors that contribute to that?
It takes the human element to go to Mars, thus expanding the labor pool on Mars.
But human element by itself has no explanatory value. I'm being more specific about the nature of that human element.
I think it does. I think the human element itself is the pinnacle of the value.
Human beings have been around for thousands of years, and only recently, have we seen the explosion in the population relative to every other point in history.
That's the Mars argument I just made. Sure, absolutely. They've been around for thousands of years, but the second they can make a rocket ship to Mars,
let's be more
now
specific.
The Martian population explodes.
What about the human element, and this has to have explanatory value, is necessary for population growth that we've seen? What about the human element needs to be there?
It can work. It can work.
So human beings have not been working for thousands of years until recently?
I didn't say that.
So what needs to be there? What's the decisive thing?
The human being. Because absent the human being, you can't expand.
Right, but human beings have been around for a long time. So what's the decisive thing for the past few hundred years?
They weren't around. I don't understand your argument, Haas.
I think just to bring it back to the whole topic at hand, I think both of you are obviously correct. Like, you're talking more about technology, he's talking about the human element, which creates the technology, but both need to be.
I'm presupposing the human element. I'm not denying it. That's a given to me, right? But I'm just saying, let's be more specific.
Maybe you can make the argument about which one matters more, but which I think this is what this argument is going down.
But the human element is not in question right now. It's not called into question.
I think it was in question because you questioned it. You said it's an expansion.
I don't understand this misunderstanding.
Okay.
I'm not calling into question the human element. I'm calling into question the idea that industrialization is somehow not the decisive thing relative to the thousands. We're presupposing that we've always been human beings. Okay, it's not like we were sheep 500 years ago. The human being thing, it's like it's taken for granted. All right.
Yeah.
But specifically, right, the past few hundred years, something new happened. right? Which is what we call industrialization.
I'm not disagreeing with
which is the expansion of the
element, though.
I think
my husband just walked upstairs in his underwear, looked at me very proudly, and just kept walking. I don't know if maybe he's trying to give me a signal. No, he's putting on a pair of pants. Never mind. I thought he was trying to give me a signal to like. Everyone wish my husband a happy birthday. It's his birthday.
I think the big thing here is that both of you are correct. I think just going back to the because we got on a kind of little bit of a circle there with the whole industrialization versus human concept of creating said industrialization. What about I guess going back to the original
I think topic. I can make this easy, right?
Yeah,
I think I can make this easy.
Yeah, he was like, Carlin.
This remember the corruption of the United States.
Human beings can't exist absent technology. Technology cannot exist absent humanity.
Okay.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Then that would mean, definitionally, that the human element is the most necessary element for the expansion of humanity.
Who's calling that into question? I'm not saying we should mutate into a different species.
But you're saying because there was a technological advance.
Yeah.
Okay, which nobody disputed that a technological advance couldn't lead
to more.
Couldn't lead to more of a population increase. Nobody's stating that is not the case. What I'm stating is that the necessity of the human element is what allows that to happen. That's
okay.
All.
Now let's presuppose the necessity of the human element, because again, I'm not arguing people were sheep 500 years ago. We've always been human. Now, what? Okay, I don't know why this is so confusing for you. Why specifically over the course of the past few hundred years did we see the dramatic explosion of the population that we have? Specifically, in a way that has explanatory value, such that it happened at this moment, not 7,000 years ago, but at this moment.
Because there was technological advancement, sure.
Okay, so industrialization and the development of the productive forces, which is what I said.
Well, no, see, there's kind of an insertion of language here, which is why I didn't want the commie speak, but we're going to have to get into the commie speak.
Sure.
When you say the explosion...
He's been speaking communist the entire time, and Andrew has just noticed
of the productive forces,
right?
Jesus.
Okay,
yeah.
So I think that you can have technology which actually pulls back productive forces in such a way where it makes
that's why I don't think technology
far more simple.
That's why I say productive forces.
Pop quiz for my chat, who is way smarter than their chat. What does it mean when they say productive forces? When they say productive forces, what are they really referring to? Yeah, we need $3 for the super chat goal. Excuse me. When they say productive forces, what are they referring to? The people. They're referring to the people. The people. Don't call them labor. Just say the people. People are the labor. Both of them are referring to the people. They're referring to the people. The people are the means of production. The factories are not the means of production. The factories are filled with people. The machinery is not the means of production. The machines are run by people. The people are the means of production. That's what we're talking about.
Rather than just technology, because productive forces also refers to the way human beings are organized and their social relations.
But human beings are the pinnacle of that technology. Then that was my whole point.
Theory. There it is.
What do we disagree about then?
Well, I think
I said the goal of communism is to expand the productive forces and the overall wealth and prosperity and happiness of the people.
Yeah, but it's going to take the people to do that. I guess that was what our hang up is.
I agree.
Andrew is correct.
Yeah, but you didn't agree a few minutes ago. A few minutes ago, you were so worried about the idea of technological advancement.
Here's the issue. Here's the issue, though. You were trying to say that you were saying, okay, so what are ways in which you can measure the development of the productive forces? Yeah. And I said one of the ways you can measure it is the expansion of the growth of the population and the material wealth. And then you said, well, hold on, wait a minute. You seem to call into question the relationship between those two things.
Yeah, but here's why.
Yeah.
Again, so I have already reconciled this and show that you're giving a contradictory position, not myself.
Why?
So here's a contradictory position.
Yeah.
Materialism itself can be self-defeating to humanity. The poorest on planet Earth are those who reproduce the most.
Okay, but this is why we got into this argument, because I'm trying to explain to you that they're poor relative to us today, but compared to 7,000 years ago, the only reason they're able to survive and live is because we have more wealth than we did 7,000 years ago.
But Okay.
We can support. I told you we can support 8 billion people today.
Yeah.
We couldn't do that in 1700.
Okay, prove it.
Why didn't we have 8 billion people in 1700?
Proof. That's question.
So you think 8 billion?
No. Don't ask me a question.
Yeah.
Give me the proof.
I think the proof that we couldn't support 8 billion people in 1700 because we didn't have the productive forces to produce enough.
I'm sorry. What productive thing do you think was necessary to support 8 billion people in 1700?
Things like the Green Revolution, where we revolutionized agricultural methods to yield outputs that are that's not conceivable in 1700.
Saying that technology has advanced and is better than it was in 1700 is not in dispute. You're not getting away with this. I need the proofs that in the year 1700 there could not have been 8 billion people on planet Earth. I need the actual evidence for that, Haas.
I mean, look, I have to concede there is no way for me to give you absolute proof because it's like proving a negative.
So you have no proof.
I have no absolute proof.
Then why do you make the assertion if you have no proof?
Because I think it's fair to infer we couldn't support 8 billion people in 1700.
On what?
Because the growth of the population reliably seemed to correspond to being able to yield more outputs in agriculture and material wealth and goods that are necessary.
I can't. I'm sorry. I'm done. I'm tapping out. I'm done. I can't take this anymore. Here is my final conclusion about this debate. Hawes is a grifter that will not answer questions. And Hawes is not dumb, by the way. Like, I may have titled this, like, Idiots Debating Communism. Hawes is not a dumb person. Hawes knows exactly what he's doing, and he just deflects and deflects and deflects and deflects and deflects and deflects and deflects. Hawes would not get along with the vast majority of communists that we watch. Hawes would not get along with the vast majority of people that you see on Socialism Saturday. And in fact, I know this because they're already making fun of Hawes and this American Communist Party. Like the real socialists, the real Marxists, the ones that are showing up in Chicago this weekend for the Socialism Conference, they make fun of all this stuff. This is not real, okay? So Hawes is a grifter that is cosplaying as the next Stalin. And he knows kind of what he's talking about. He knows enough how to deflect around a debate, but he's a debate bro, nothing more. I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised at Andrew Wilson, even though, can we just be honest for a second? And again, I said this at the beginning, but I think it bears repeating. Andrew Wilson never should have shaved his beard. This is an awful look for Andrew Wilson. Like, this is like, he needs to grow the beard back. Listen, I don't like Andrew Wilson on a good day, but like watching Andrew Wilson without a beard is almost impossible. And we just did it for like 3 hours. So, well, I think that he did well. I was oftentimes so distracted by the fact that he didn't have a beard anymore that I almost couldn't even pay attention because it was that distracting. All right. He does appear to know more about communism than I gave him credit for. I think that Andrew Wilson could get better at understanding communist language because his expectation was Hawes was going to adapt to him, which is just stupid. That's never going to happen. Andrew Wilson would be a more effective debater in this structure if he understood the language of communism more, if he actually listened to real socialists, real communists. Again, Hawes is not a real communist. MAGA communism is not a real thing. Hawes would not get along with real communists and socialists and all that stuff in the real world. So Andrew Wilson needs to do a better job of understanding the language Hawes is speaking, and that would have made him a more effective debater. But I think he actually did okay. I was very pleasantly surprised that Myron didn't say anything. Myron just sat there and kept his mouth shut, which I really do think is like best case scenario. But that's all I can take. I can't watch anymore. I'm done. I can't watch it anymore. Also, I have a show in about 50 minutes. So I'm going to go take a break. This is Tuesday night. On Tuesdays, Jennifer and I do Disenrage on Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock, which Disenrage is more about woo and spirituality and like in nicer conversations that are not about politics and not about outrage and not about internet nonsense and drama and all this stuff. And Jennifer and I are going to do a show later where we're going to listen to an afterlife interview with the Trump assassin to get that perspective. So that's going to be happening around 9 o'clock tonight. So we're going to do that a little bit later. And yeah, I mean, I'm just going to take maybe couple minutes out. I gave Victor his birthday present. Victor got his birthday present yesterday because he took a couple days off and he needed something to tinker with. So I gave him his birthday present yesterday. He got a Lego Chewbacca to add to his massive Lego Star Wars collection. And so he's been playing with Legos, and he just went out and hung out with his friends. And so I'm gonna go and just have some celebration time with my husband. When you get to a certain age, you don't really celebrate your birthday anymore. But I'm gonna go, maybe give him a kiss on the cheek or something like that. And then I will be back at 9 o'clock, and we're gonna talk about the Trump assassination afterlife interview. And that's all she wrote for today, guys. Thank you for hanging out with me. I do appreciate it. Almost met the super chat goal. So close. But great effort. Thank you for everyone who sent in super chats. I appreciate you guys. I will be back in a little bit. See ya. Bye.